Hello, everybody. Welcome to my favorite shitty movie. We are back. Somehow we are back. It's incredible. You can't kill us. We're like measles because we're just not doing anything about it anymore. Just letting it all hang out. That's what we do. It's 2025. Times have found us. Welcome back. I'm so excited because speaking of the times, actually I want to share my shirt first. So for those longtime listeners, I know that I have a cute little rescue mutt named Pliskin after Snake Plissken because I love Kurt Russell and I always will. And I felt like there was this T-shirt about Snake Plissken that felt like it was tied into this movie subliminally, but probably for the next 4 years as well. I'm very proud of the artwork on this. I think it speaks really well for itself. And so now I can walk Pliskin wearing a Pliskin shirt. And that's how we resist sometimes downtown. Tonight, we are going to be talking about a film that when I say it out loud, if you're not familiar with it, and I'm assuming a lot of people aren't because it completely tanked in its day, the day being 1995. It's a film called Canadian Bacon. This is a film that sat around on a shelf for a couple years. We had Polygram that then was sold and scooped up by Gramercy. And because of all that mishigosh of, companies buying other companies and film slates suffering because of it, we had to wait a little bit before one could see Canadian Bacon. It is probably best known, sadly, as it's the last film John Candy did. And also it's the only not documentary film basically Michael Moore has ever done. So, he had already done Roger and Me. He'd done, a lot of these films coming up that we know, like Bowling for Columbine and Fahrenheit 9/11. And the themes that obviously I think made Michael Moore want to tell those stories are very clear and present in Canadian Bacon, which allegedly is a comedy. I sometimes struggle with really broad comedies. I don't think I would have thought this film was funny in 95. And now I don't think it's funny because it's actually happening. Here's the quick pitch. So we have a really incompetent president who doesn't know what he's doing, who will go on to become a talk show host kind of, but he hasn't been that yet. And he gets talked into by a couple bad advisors. Since he really can't go to war with Russia, he should maybe start a war with Canada. And then there are some people who might survive this particular storyline who will end saying maybe we should go into Mexico. And that's the vision of Michael Moore poking fun at us Americans as gun nuts, is not particularly bright, as personified by Rhea Perlman, who plays Honey, who's with the aforementioned late, great John Candy, who are cops who patrol the Niagara Falls border between our country and Canada, and just do a bunch of dumb things, personifying maybe the dumbest of Americans. That's it. It's a lot of skits. It's an incredible cast. You've got Rip Torn, who shows up like he's like still on the Larry Sanders Show, just owning it. You have visual allusions to Stanley Kubrick's The War Room from, Dr. Strangelove that are very obviously invoked and fun. Alan Alda playing the hapless president before he would play kind of the hapless Republican version of the same president, I think on West Wing, maybe a decade later. There's a lot to unpack. I cannot wait to do this tonight. I think this is the perfect, now maybe it's funnier than it was in its day, film to talk about. So I want to bring up, I should also mention before I bring Todd, my co-host of Mayhem, up, Todd had like a little dental thing today, so he's in pain. And so be gentle on Mr. Todd tonight. Before he brings himself up, I just want to say, Todd, I'm so sorry. And I'm so glad you're still here. You are a fighter. Bring yourself into the program tonight, Roy Boy Anderson.
Hey, everybody. I had my first root canal today. My face hurts so much. It's insane.
Oh my God! You look like those women from Mar-a-Lago where you can't move your face at all.
Yeah. It's I probably look weird. I have probably still some residual Novocaine in the face. It hurts. I think John Candy's last movie was Wagons East.
Yes, they were.
This was definitely a later one. But what you were saying about when you saw it in 95, you didn't think it was funny, and
no, I want to be clear. I didn't see it in 95 because I heard it was terrible, and I don't think I would have thought it was funny then either. But it's interesting now in a way that
okay, because like when I was, still a kid, basically, or a young adult, moving into adulthood, moving out to California, really, and this movie happened. I liked Michael Moore at the time because of Roger and Me, and
great film. Great.
Yeah, and so I was like, oh, awesome, this guy is really funny, because I thought Roger and Me was really funny while also like horribly sad and
Poignant.
tear inducing.
Yeah.
It's a very Roger and Me is a very good movie. But like, so I was so excited to see Michael Moore do like a narrative thing. And the cast, you know, I mean, I was a big Candy guy, and the only thing that gave me pause at the time, I was like, oh, it's rated PG, so he's going to be pulling punches or whatever.
Yeah.
And when I saw it, I like, at the time, I was like, you know, I didn't hate it. It wasn't an unpleasant experience on any level, but it did, like, there weren't enough laughs.
Yes, that's true.
But then, like, about a month or so ago, I watched it because it came up on one of my streaming services, and then I got to talking to Crix about it, because I posted something. I remember thinking that this movie wasn't funny the first time I saw it when it came out.
Oh, okay.
And it's still not, the same thing you said, and it's still not funny because it's happening right now.
Now it's happening. But here's the thing, though, and
but just one more thing.
Yeah.
But then I rewatched it with Hillary a couple nights ago because we wanted to do the Anderson family reenactment, which you will get to see later in the show. And when I was watching it with her the second time, and granted, like, I was on painkillers, I've had this horrible toothache since the last show. Literally, this toothache came on like right after the last show we did. So I've been like in like tooth pain hell for a week. But we watched it again, and because I'd seen it so recently, I was just like glomming on to the performances,
yes,
and the character work, and like all the examples you said, Alan Alda in particular. Like, there's this one moment where he's like responding to like war propaganda, and he's delighted by it. And it's so funny. There's no jokes in the dialogue. There's no jokes there. But what's funny is Alan Alda. And I think you have to be in the right headspace to enjoy that kind of.
He finds the moments.
Yeah.
And Rhea Perlman does like a lot of physical comedy with like not a lot of dialogue, and winds up stealing everything she's in. And
yeah, she's really good. I mean, I like, honestly, I think across the board, the cast is really good. Kevin J. O'Connor does the Kevin J. O'Connor thing. Thankfully, not the Kevin J. O'Connor doing brown face in the Mummy version of Kevin J. O'Connor. But like, I always love seeing that guy. By the way, really fast, because Kevin J. O'Connor just made me think of this. Nicky Katt. Yeah. Oh my God. Raise a glass to Nicky Katt. I was such a huge fan of his. I always hoped that one day I would get to work with him, and boom. It's just so, you know, but Kevin J. O'Connor is that for me. He's like a guy who can do a lot with a little, which Nicky Katt, like, you know, like me being career-wise mostly a bit player, Nicky Katt was like something I aspired to. This is a guy who, no matter what he gets, he's doing great things with it. And it's always memorable within a small context in a larger story. Yeah. And Kevin J. O'Connor is one of those guys who does that for me. But, you know, and then you have Bill Nunn, you know, who played Radio Raheem in Do the Right Thing. And it's just, and the cameos, like, even like Jim Belushi is not a dude who I think is that funny. No. But his cameo in this, I think, is hilarious. His like apology
on the air for being, you know,
for being too drunk, and saying, and I'm really looking at you guys who are standing too close to the curb.
Yeah.
So he's basically saying he committed DUI manslaughter.
Yeah. But his name is Jackal, and he's at the border. You're like, okay. I mean, there are little bits and pieces here that are very clever, but I was struck with, again, seeing it so out of time, I guess, just to set the stage before we bring, you know, Crix up, is like, because this was sitting around a little bit between Polygram and Gramercy and delays of release, that initially Moore coming, high after the Roger and Me of it all, wanted to do a scripted movie, and he wanted to kind of have a response to the H.W. Bush war in Iraq. And so this was absolutely written closer to when that was over, and the whole concept of like, even when there's no reason to have war, America seems to find a reason, and it's usually feckless politicians without motivation or being informed or any of the rest of it. And what's crazy is like the more things change, the more maybe they stay the same. And just the idea that somebody made a movie about like, it's so absurd, it's safe to say America's never going to attack Canada. And then 2025, we're here. And so this film, which I think really is not talked about an awful lot for a reason, will now probably be rediscovered because it's like this absurdist thing. And it is, I think, perfect for this show. So I'm excited.
I think it also plays better now. Like, yes. Weirdly, in retrospect, it plays better, the satire of it. But also, like, one of the things I do like about this movie very much, which is why I went to see it, because like so much of these particular jokes are packed into the trailer, is all this negative like propaganda about Canada in this movie is absolutely hilarious. And that's why, like, that it's happening in our reality right now, it's even funnier, because it's like, yeah, when are they going to do that? When are they going to pull this out and start doing this? Because they are going to, if they haven't already.
Maybe this is the Project 2025 guy's favorite film. I don't know. I mean, there, weirder theories have happened, but it's odd. I can't see if Crix is there because her camera seems closed. I was going to bring her up. Oh, she is. Yeah. Okay, so without further ado, you guys, she's one of your favorites. She is backed by popular demand, and frankly, just being a generous person who wants to hang out in our lame ass sandbox. Well, we kind of marinate on, why is this film so bad? Why is it so great? Why do we love it all? So very excited. Uber film geek, total cinephile. Kind of knows a little bit about everything. She's like one of those like autodidacts, is my theory,
and knows everybody. Like, she knows everybody,
and is so pop culturally aware. I mean, people should probably be consulting her more, and then we don't have to sit through things like, I don't know, Cats as a film, because she could have told you why that wasn't going to work before you ever made it. Putting that out there as a working theory.
I could have done that.
Yeah, but she would have done it a whole way, man, in a whole mood. So without further ado, let's please bring up Crix Lee back to the program.
Hello.
Yes.
I'm having my hockey mouth right now.
Nice. Oh, nice. It's your ode to Goon. Speaking of Canadian pictures.
Oh, great movie, Goon. Jay Baruchel.
We did Goon. That was a good.
Yeah, we did Goon.
Goon 2, not so much, but The Last of the Enforcers.
It's not that bad. Like, as a sequel, as a sports comedy sequel, which is a very hard thing to do, Goon 2, The Enforcer, is not bad. It's not bad. But it's not Goon. You can't be Goon. You can't lightning in a bottle. You can't do that.
Oh my God.
You cannot do Caddyshack 2.
Sean William Scott was such a, I've always been a fan of that guy, but he was such a weird revelation in this movie.
Yeah.
Because he was playing someone you never see, like when in the bar, when the lights come up and he just goes, sad. Jeff Luce was asking, Canadian Bacon or the South Park movie, who did the war against Canada? But I think, honestly, Canadian Bacon.
Really?
I do.
Because it was
the CN Tower. Like, nobody fucks with the CN Tower, and to have it there like that, and then to show that you have to climb all the fucking stairs to get up there, it's like, yeah. Because if you mess with the CN Tower, it is going to be all out war.
Well, and also Canadian Bacon, it's simple. It's the whole thing. In South Park, it's a musical number. It's one kind of joke. Which
was great when Robin Williams.
But there's a lot of other stuff going on in South Park, the movie. Canadian Bacon is just about going to war with Canada.
Right. But it was very smart of Trey and Matt, because they were fucking high on acid at the Oscars, to have Robin Williams do the song when they still presented best musical numbers, and for him to have him do Blame Canada. And the thing about South Park that I do appreciate is that Stephen Sondheim said it was one of the most important musicals of that time.
Wow.
And Trey and Matt kind of went, oh, that's great. Who's Stephen Sondheim? And I'm like, you know who Stephen Sondheim is. Don't even bullshit, Trey. Like, you are a big ass musician. But going back to Canadian Bacon and picking up on what Tracy and Todd were saying, yeah, Moore wrote the screenplay during the first Gulf War, and it was reaction about what he felt about the U.S. government's manipulation of media during Desert Storm. And my boyfriend at the time was in Desert Storm. So, and then the thing about the studios, and this is another reason why people who are fans of this movie should thank Madonna, because this went to 47 different film studio companies, and everybody said no, except for Maverick, which is Madonna's company.
Wow.
Maverick Productions, they picked up the option. So if it wasn't for her,
Wow.
studio, we would never see this fucking movie. This would
it's more proof of my theory that Madonna does not give a fuck.
She doesn't, and so I'm glad for even if
why should she have to? I mean, I remember vividly being like a little girl at the time watching like American Bandstand real time, because that's what we used to do, children. And all of a sudden, Dick Clark puts this microphone in young Madonna's face. No one knew who she is. And he's like, your name's Madonna? And she's like, uh-huh. And he's like, well, what do you want to do? And she's like, I'm going to take over the world. And guess what? Like, she did. So, like, I love that. And I love the idea that, she is responsible for this movie. It's like that great factoid about we wouldn't get Star Trek without Lucille Ball. Only Desilu understood what Roddenberry was trying to achieve with Star Trek, originally called Wagon to the Stars, right? And it's like, oh my God, Lucy's the reason we have Star Trek. I mean, how brilliant. And so I love that these women who, rule in their domains are also like, I'm gonna hand to another artist in another medium even, and I'll make it happen. It's like fabulous.
I've worked with Madonna, as you know.
Yes.
But I've also worked with someone who worked on Canadian Bacon as an editor. Her name is Wendy Stansler.
Yeah, she's a director now.
She's a director now. She directed a bunch of episodes of You're the Worst, and also an episode of Atypical that I wound up being on.
Yeah, Atypical. Amy Okuda, who was in the Guild, Felicia Day's web series, she plays the therapist in Atypical. She's the Asian.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she started Wendy, in web series and went up.
Wendy directed the episode of You're the Worst, which was my first, one of my only two like character-centric episodes. It was just me and Alan McLeod in this episode. And at one point, the two of us are pantsless and masturbating into a campfire. And Wendy, who was standing, 50, 60 feet away, was barking orders at us so it would look right.
Faster,
move your asses more. Get more into it. You're really coming now. It was the funniest night of my life, I have to say. So there you go.
Yeah, it's this movie came out in 95, and then Wag the Dog came out in 97, which was loosely based on a novel called American Hero. And Mamet and his writing partner were actually nominated for an Oscar for Best Adapted. And then Dustin Hoffman, who plays the producer,
Bob Evans, basically.
Yeah, Bob, and he got a nomination for it. But the thing is so that this is where it comes in, and this is why I didn't choose Wag the Dog. Because sometimes I'll just get a wild hair up my ass, and I'm like, I'll see like, now the whole thing with teachers and the Department of Education. A couple weeks ago, I said to Todd, I was like, you should do teachers and have your wife on, So I always do this. And so when Trump was like, we're going to fucking tariff the shit out of you, I immediately messaged Todd. I'm like, hey, you want to do Canadian Bacon? Have you ever seen this movie? But the thing is if you look, I don't know how loose the Wag the Dog is, but the Canadian Bacon, so it was like the novel and then Canadian Bacon came out in 95, and then Wag the Dog came out 2 years later. And while Wag the Dog had an A-list cast, and James Belushi was actually in both versions.
That's right.
And the thing that I didn't care for was seeing, you know, and I did watch Wag the Dog again, and there's just, it feels like some things were kind of, Levinson kind of lifted some things that were going on because the book is, because they say it's loosely, there's too many comparisons for me between Canadian Bacon and Wag the Dog that don't mesh. And it's like, Canadian Bacon is like, if you want a good laugh. Wag the Dog is more like a little bit serious, except for the one scene, because they fake a war with Albania in Wag the Dog. And the best scene out of that whole movie is when Kirsten Dunst is dressed like an Albanian person, and they have her run across a green screen with a bag of Doritos. And then when they edit it up and show it to the news, she's running from bombs with like, I think it was like a dog or a kid or a cat in her arms. But going back to Canadian Bacon, I think that one was more timely too, because you got that guy G.D. Spradlin is playing Hacker, which is obviously Halliburton, and that's kind of where the movie starts. Is Hacker, and it's based in Niagara Falls, New York, and so Hacker has a big plant out there, and because there's nothing going on, they have to shut down the plant, and everybody gets fired. Sound familiar? And so so Roy Boy tries to kill himself earlier, and we hear that John Candy's character and Bill Nunn and Rhea Perlman, they used to work at the factory, but now they're cops. And they're like, yeah, so they've had a record number of suicides. That's a picture, and it's like 25 if you can talk them out of it, or 50 for and this is every time, and $50 for the body retrieval. And so at first they're like, jump, and they're like, no, that's Roy Boy, that's my good hat, you know. Yeah, and Kevin J. O'Connor, I mean, come on, in the Geo Metro that literally just starts shitting car parts. Well, he's trying to run full force off of the fence.
I want to give props to the opening credits, because it's, you know, it's like this bucolic, you know, they're trying to double. It's not DC. It's not the White House. They're badly doing that. But you have, like, you know, this is, you know, again, this is like, oh, it's the beast that they're driving in. But the idea that the presidential, they're driving by this guy who is like taped up and
they just ignore
and they just drive by, like the cops do. No one notices this guy at all. And they're like, oh yeah, it's fine. That's totally normal. As the president,
they just assume he's another homeless guy.
Yeah.
Because that's how the government is with homeless people.
He's duct taped hanging out in the middle of the street. And they're like, okay, excuse us. You know?
Yeah. And then to get him to sing High Hopes, that's such a dated song. And so that's how you really know where this movie is put in, because there were a lot of movies back then that would feature high hopes. Either it was like, I'm about to get murdered, or funny. And in this case, this dude just tried to commit suicide twice and accidentally gets shot in the shoulder by Honey, who's Rhea Perlman. And he just, like, funny when he falls over, he's like, who did that? Medic.
Yeah. Also the fact that they don't even try, like, there's no way a cop has that hair and beard, and they're like, just go for it. There's no way that Rhea Perlman's hair is like that. You know, it's
this place reminds me of Idaho a little bit, because in McCall, Idaho, that place gets packed during the winter, especially Christmas, New Year's. And so I don't know if they still do it in McCall, but like, imagine just living in a small, quiet town that becomes a ski town in the winter. And there's like, maybe like, it's like the Dodgers fans trying to pack themselves into a gymnasium. And so what they do is they were like, if you don't have a record and you have a licensed firearm, you can be a cop just for that time period.
Well, and they do in this particular movie, they set up that there's nepotism involved.
Mm-hmm. It's like because your dad's the mayor or some shit.
Yeah. He's the nephew of the mayor or whatever. But both he and Rhea Perlman got these jobs as cops when they lost their weapons factory jobs,
right?
Due to various reasons. So that's why their thing is, they don't give a shit about crime. They just want to.
Well, no, that's why I mean they don't have their fucking hairs, whatever.
In the real world, that could still be the case, but there's still.
And it's like satirically, this sequence is a good joke on capitalism. Period. You know, if you save them, you get $25, the suicides, and if you have to drag them out of the river, it's $50. So it behooves the cops to try and kill. I
know they made $450.
Yeah,
but also this like peace through fear since 1947, which is a very specific year.
And the best part of that whole thing is like, of course, like hacker Halliburton is like, it's their fucking fault. And the president's in town. And he's like saying this shit in front of the president. It's like, it's the president's fucking fault that you guys all got fired. And then when they have the auction and they're like, $25, because you don't see what's on sale yet. And it's like, sold for $25. And they go hand Roy Boy a fucking RPG. And he's like, cool. Which
for $25.
Yeah.
That is funny. It's a weird thing, this movie, because like when you're watching it, it doesn't make you laugh out loud, but you think in your head, yeah, that's funny. It's weird. It's weird.
I mean, there's so many things of that where there's like weird throwaway lines that you don't hear. And, but the way that
here quoting like dust in the like, you know, what is this song?
It's Bob Dylan. It's the Blowing in the Wind.
Yeah. Blowing in the Wind. So he's such a dumb president that he's like quoting Blowing in the Wind as if it's like a statement he's making in real time. And everyone's just like, sure. But it's like, wow. Like, so to introduce someone like Alan Alda, who we know is really great guy, very smart, very liberal tendencies. I mean, not just MASH, but his philanthropic work. I mean, he's one of the nice guys, one of the great guys. No one ever says a bad thing about it. Here he is playing this complete numbskull of a president, you know. And
those are so often the best guys to play these. It's like Mark Ruffalo now, what he excels in is playing hardcore right-wing sociopaths. You know, I mean, like his last number of roles have been those. He's great as the Hulk and a nice guy who turns into a monster, but he relishes stuff like that Frankenstein movie with the Zombieland.
Frankenhooker. I mean, Poor Things. Yeah.
Poor Things. Yeah, Poor Things. It would have been better if they just done a remake of Frankenhooker.
I agree. It was better. It was better. So then we had this incident, right?
Right, because Roy Boy's RPG, he's like fucking with it, and he actually sets it off, and for some reason it's loaded, which is so funny. And
they sold a loaded RPG. I mean, that's
$25.
That's the joke, because we're crazy Americans and we're all like, we need guns. You know?
And the other thing about those newspaper things is if you actually read the articles, they aren't talking about anything that's going on here.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Many persons feel that this from the inside, which will stage some legal actions forthcoming, but it now becomes common knowledge that there is a pressure from the inside. This is early AI. It's early AI.
Yeah, and it's like this like a total of 187 passengers alleged that blah blah blah. So the article is not, and it reminds me of other things like Family Guy has done it, and a couple of other movies have done it where they're like, "Are you actually fucking reading this?" Like, and so they'll just put weird shit on there, and then but one time they actually put in the article, they're like, "Are you actually reading this? Why are you reading this?" But
that brings up a good point. Carroll O'Connor, super left, but he played one of the all-time great right wing.
Yeah, and also a show constantly quoted by American Nazis as like this thing, and it's like, you guys didn't understand.
So like they didn't get, like, people were like, "Oh, you're mocking," and then the people they were mocking are like, "Yeah, we look great." And you're like, there's America.
Like, I really think that show, so much of it, like so much of that residual weirdness, is because bigots had a character. They were being represented. It doesn't matter if they were being made fun of, because they didn't understand they were being made fun of. It was a sitcom about a bigot, and they were like, yeah, Meathead's an idiot.
Brought out a shitload of spin-offs. All in the Family, the Jeffersons, Claude, Archie Bunker's place, but you know,
still.
But Danielle Brisbois, that was when they brought in I hate to call her the cousin Oliver, but she really is the cousin Oliver. It's like where they bring in a kid last minute, like Brian
Like,
Bonsall.
no, for now, yeah.
Yeah, but Brian
Like,
Bonsall was.
Crappy do over there, yeah.
But the funny part about all this is that they're talking. Yeah, thank you, Todd. You knew right where I was going. So
That's Tracy.
they
That was
invite-
Tracy.
Oh, Tracy, thank you. They invite the Russians over, give them KFC, which at the time was not KFC. It was Kentucky Fried Chicken. And
Look, and they call it Hacker Fried Chicken.
and it's a and that was like original recipe. Damn.
Also, I just want to say the way this actor ate this piece of chicken,
Oh my God.
it made me want KFC, and I hate KFC. I don't like if I get fried chicken, I'm not getting that shit.
Yeah.
But it made I was like, oh, that looks good.
That's also
But the throwaway lines in this were so great. I'm sorry, Tracy. When they're like, yo, you won. No, they're just like, come on, dude. We don't want to get in another war with you. And this is where the
when the
throwaway
premiere
lines.
is like, don't be a sore winner.
And this is where the throwaway lines that people have in this movie, where you would ignore it literally, but when they're walking out, you hear Rip Torn go, "We got more chicken."
Yeah.
As they're walking to the helicopter, and I don't know why that has always made me laugh super hard, but it's just like it's the weirdest thing to say. It's like, we got more chicken.
Well, before we move off the chicken, I mean, it's a little thing, but again, the whole point is that the setup that we want to go back to, right? Where Hacker's like, I just want to go back into the war business. We got to start some work so I can sell weapons. This is irresponsible. What are you thinking, Kevin Pollak? You get to your boy, la la la. All this kind of good stuff's going on. The idea is he's like, well, what? I mean, it's so unfair that I'm a president where I can't be at war with Russia. I mean, everyone gets to be at war with Russia. Maybe we could start that again.
Why don't I have Russia? All these other guys got Russia.
So the whole
He
setup.
doesn't have a bad point.
Who was president in '95
This
or during Desert Storm? That was Bush, right?
right, but this is Clinton era when this by the time it comes out.
Yeah.
But
Right, but this is.
the whole
by
point
the
of,
time it comes out, it does. But at the
Right.
time,
but
I
at
think
the
that's
point of this scene though is, can you pretend that we're fighting? Because that really would work out well for me because we
right.
can have some aggression. So the whole point is he's like, oh no, I'm not going to do that. But the idea that you have a stupid president who is feeding fast food to people would have been outrageous then, except we have a president who's like, are you an Olympian? Come and have a cold McDonald's burger.
That's one of the things. There's so many examples of that in this movie, and you go, what? And I know a MAGA person wouldn't see it. It would be like,
what's
huh?
KFC?
Right. And the other thing is oh God, I think I just lost my train of thought.
But this is like where they're literally trying to tackle him. But look at the Russian who's like I mean, the guy's like, I'm taking the bucket with me.
He's taking the bucket
And they
because
don't.
they love fried chicken. They don't have that in Russia, Tracy.
They don't. And then you've got like, Rip Torn who just wants to beat the shit out of Russia because he misses the Cold War. I mean, more.
And let's not forget that his last name is Panzer.
Panther.
So I thought that was really clever and Alan Alda's character is just the president of the United States. He does not have a name. And even in the credits, it says that. And speaking of credits, they do have a fun credit at the end where it was like, thank you, Jack LaRue. We got our crane shot, which was based on a Candy character from SCTV, which I watched tons of.
Oh, right. LaRue.
I
yeah.
didn't get it. And
Yeah.
I didn't get what I was watching on SCTV, but I knew I had an absolute crush on every single person on that show, including the women. And it was like their version of 1984 is still the craziest thing I've ever seen because it wasn't comedy. It was Eugene Levy and I think Catherine O'Hara. They did this version of 1984. And
Wow.
and I just love stuff like that. And then so when you go into why we start a war with Canada is, and it's, I found this, and this is probably my favorite part of the whole movie is when they're at the hockey game.
But Crix, I wanted to ask you before we get there, because you mentioned something about Alan Alda. I wanted to pick up about how
Because
he doesn't have a name, but he also doesn't have a wife. He's
right
like by himself. Clearly they put so he's a bachelor numbskull. I hadn't seen that
think
before.
he was, I feel like because Bush Jr. was president before Clinton. Is that right? I'm really bad with, and I think that the character.
No, after.
No.
HW.
Clinton came after Bush Senior.
And
Okay, then my
Bush
theory is
Jr.
wrong because the reason why I thought they made him so goofy and charming is because I don't know if you guys have seen the documentary that Pelosi's daughter did, but she went on the campaign tour
Yes.
with Bush Jr.
Yeah.
And we saw
Travels with George.
Huh?
Travels with George, I think it was.
Yeah, and Journeys with George, I think it was
George,
called.
yeah.
But you see that he's really fucking charming, and he's actually a really nice guy for a Republican. And then you see more of him come out after he's been president, and it's like how they all banded against Trump.
This is what Bill Maher
candy
says about Trump. This is what Bill Maher says
Bill Maher
about
can
Trump
suck
now.
my dick.
But all I'm saying is that when a member of the media, it's not just the press, it's comedians too. When a member of the media goes in a room with the fascist leader of a fascist nation, the fascist leader is so nice. And he's not the douchebag you see on TV. It's the same. Hitler did this. It's the same fucking
Bill
thing.
Maher's a fucking douchebag. Dude, Hitler, there's films of Hitler up at the Eagle's Nest, and he calls his dog over, and the dog isn't even close. He's like, as he walks, the dog gets lower and lower and lower, and his tail goes between his legs. This is why Trump doesn't have pets, because I guarantee you, pets probably fucking run from this dude. Like and then Logan Paul has his whole fucking family has a reality show on Max. And I'm like, why would you fucking give a Trump supporter? And in the first episode, you see him all giggling and shaking hands with Trump. And I'm just like, I knew I didn't like you before, but now I really don't fucking like you. And why is this show on HBO?
But Crix, you're pointing out a good point, as is Todd. And I think, again, this film I don't think is as deep as Michael Moore thinks he's being. However, a big part of this film is an indictment about the media and how the media spins the narrative. Just like Wag the Dog, I think it's a way better film than this. But this is trying to make you laugh. I think Moore thinks through comedy.
No, that's why this is comedy for sure.
Totally.
Wag the Dog is like, oh my God, it's fucking
just
serious.
To pick up on the point, staying on that one point, it is instructional because Moore gets this right. Like, Leni Riefenstahl, made 2 films for the Nazis. They're the only ones we remember because they're the only good films, right? Olympia, where she captures the Aryans getting their asses kicked by Jesse Owens. So thanks, girl. And then Triumph of the Will in 1935 when it comes out. But she's selling the myth. And what's the myth that her cameras tell you? Oh, look at those cute little Aryan boys playing with their dogs. She leaves out the part about how they have to kill the dog to get the stripes to become the full Nazi, right? But these guys are just they're guys playing with their dogs, and they're wearing these great uniforms, and it's totally fine. It's the use of media to sell this myth, and this is exactly what this film talks about in terms of the portrayal. And then when they come into the bedroom, and they're like, "Hey, so here's the good news. When your polls went up because when you were assassinated, and then they went down after they found out you lived, but
right."
At the end of the day, it didn't really matter if you were alive or dead in terms of your polling. And Alda's like, well, that's good.
Well, comedy aside,
too, for a fake assassination attempt.
Yeah, comedy aside, too, you can tell that nobody takes the president fucking seriously because who the fuck sits on the president's bed like that with their shoes on?
With their shoes.
And I was just so like, the first time I saw that movie and he got on the bed like that, I was like, bro, if I was president, I would just grab you by your fucking belt and throw you out the goddamn window.
Yeah.
And that's the whole, it's like nobody takes this fucking guy seriously, and they all treat Hacker like he's the president, like they did with Halliburton.
Or like they're doing with Musk. I mean,
oh my God, Musk kid at that one, he's like, gotta stop talking. And then when he said you're not the president, I was like, what the fuck?
You know what? I'm just here to say, Damien, did anyone check behind the ears? Did we look for the 6s? Because I don't know.
Like that kid.
They're behind Elon's.
No
this is
anyway.
This is just a small demon.
Kids
I feel bad for that kid. He's gonna grow up.
He doesn't even know he's in the White House. He doesn't know how.
He's a little kid. He doesn't know. He thinks it's fun, but then he's going to grow up.
Anyway.
And he's going to be living in solitude because the whole fucking world wants to kill him.
Even his daughter. Like
he's like, I don't know. That's the thing about fascists is when you're a fascist politician, all your fascist politician friends want to kill you. Because they want to be the top fascist. That's how fascism works.
And everybody knows that it's obvious Trump isn't in charge because he let Elon Musk in the room during a press thing, and B, let him bring a fucking kid.
He lets Elon run.
And Elon Musk wasn't even dressed appropriately.
But I will say this: people
running cabinet meetings. That's how not in control.
You
of
come to the White House, you wear a fucking suit. That's
Yeah,
all.
more recently, I just want to say more recently, Elon Musk came under fire for bringing his kid on his shoulders like he always does to a UFC event.
Yep.
And people were like, isn't that like kind of violent to show your kids? And I got to say, my kid was in a Taekwondo class, obviously older than Elon Musk's at the time, but he was still little. And I took him to a professional UFC fight. Luckily, his instructor, we went because his teacher was competing. And luckily, his teacher won that time. But then later, Hillary took him to another event with his teacher, and his teacher got his ass kicked. And Hillary
that's got to be sad.
We can never bring Colby to one of these again because this was horrifying.
I was explaining.
I survived.
I was explaining to someone about UFC. Oh, because they thought, well, isn't that fake? And I'm like, oh no, UFC is real. I was like, Google UFC, like I think like broken legs. And I said this, I was like, the shit that I have seen on UFC, like when the guy tried to kick him and his whole fucking shin just collapsed. I was like, I have seen things on UFC that would make Joe Montana's infamous injury look like a fucking rug burn.
The WWE and its ripoffs are the only fake wrestlings. And even those are like incredibly injuring and fuck people up for life.
Yeah.
I've worked with lots of professional wrestlers. They tell me all the stories. Yeah, we were bullshitting through certain things, but we got hurt in other things. They're stuntmen. They're doing stunts.
But back to the movie, though.
Back to the movie.
Okay. So, speaking of wrestlers, sorry, my Aspie's kicking in really bad. There is a scene where Honey is arm wrestling someone in a bar.
It's a flashback.
And it's Maurice.
We haven't gotten there yet, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's Maurice Vachon, who was a pro wrestler for 40 years, and he's super popular. And Canadian Bacon's also done a really great job of bringing in Canadian actors, but also doing fun things like John Candy, who's a hardcore Canadian, playing this anti-Canadian nut job that Trump would just be like, I want to put you in my pocket. Can you like help me? So we're at the part where they've decided where they're going to go.
Because we skipped through just a little bit of the story. So basically we have a problem because we're starting a war with Canada. And what I like is they're like, well, can't we pick somebody besides Canada? And in the background, they throw up a picture of Jane Fonda. They're like, no, she's reformed. Oh, damn it. And they're like, Noriega, nah, he's in prison. They go.
And then the other one was like, dead.
But this is Michael Moore doing Strangelove, right down to the sets, trying to imply, you guys, what used to be a Kubrick satire is like what I'm doing again, but for a new era. And then you have literally a fight breaks out, because you've got the American who dares say that Canadian beer sucks. Right. And so this starts to get on the news. And this is the first time people, wait a second, this was the guy who actually saved Alan Alda. So this is like the wheels are turning in terms of maybe Canada is where we should be aiming this war. And so you've got,
Okay, I want to time out right here because the hockey game was, because they, you hear the three of them like low key bitching about stuff, and the fact that John can't like Boomer, which I think is a great name as well. Boomer and he goes, yeah, and the Canadian beer sucks at this level, and the whole fucking it's like record scratch, and then when the guy who comes up, it is not Mario Lemieux. But it was a really great tribute to Mario Lemieux, who's one of the greatest Canadians of all time, who played for Pittsburgh. His whole career was at Pittsburgh with the Penguins. And so you hear all that stuff, and then we move forward to like, he's like, all I said was Canadian beer sucks. And then that's when they really latch onto that whole.
And then we get this great, Tracy was trying to get us here.
Oh yeah,
this is a great This is part of a great montage of just hilarious jokes about Canada.
Where they're like, oh no, Leslie Nielsen, Raymond Burr, Louis B. Mayer, Ivan Reitman,
Michael J. Fox, they're all among us.
I don't know who Rick James is. That was the one that made me laugh because I'm like, well, our Rick James is American, but I was like, who is your Rick James? Or are you just making shit up?
But this is what I want what you just said, but you're just making stuff up, Crix. This is what's so genius about this scene, because the guy is a Canadian conspiracy theorist who's working there, and he's like, yeah, I was wrong about Vietnam and in Korea. So you know that he's a wingnut because he has all these conspiracy theories.
No, he says he was right about all those
He
things.
was
And
right.
that guy, the conspirator, was in Slapshot.
Right. But the conspirator, all it takes, which is again prescient, all it takes is for the conspirator to say, I was wrong, I was right, this and that. Let me show you the folder. And then he gives him talking points of we would call alternative facts now, which are complete bullshit, conspiracy theories that gives Pollock the idea to then talk to the dumb president. Conspiracy theories made up by a nut job. It's like when Dick Cheney was in office, we had Curveball, who was his source for what was going on, right? Curveball, look at the name. So it's like that you have this beginning of Moore is doing the clue trail of wingnut conspiracy, talking to a bad handler who brainwashes a stupid president who then embraces it as policy, and ever so.
Yeah, and
the plot of this movie.
Oh yeah, no, sorry. I was just saying the media back then was really good at terrorizing the general public because we had just had to deal with the fucking 80s and possibly getting nuked by Russia, and it was just Russia. Like that's why almost all the 80s films, the villains are either Russian or they're like Swedish, or not Swedish, but like Aryan. They're all Aryan. You can all tell who they are because they always have blonde hair. But what in
the 80s? That's not true. There were so few anti-Nazi action movies. It was Middle Easterners
Nazi,
and Russians.
The villains were always
the Russians were Aryan, though. They were always Dolph Lundgren, Rocky Horror.
Aryan looking, blonde.
Aryan looking, but that's different. That's
I know. It's
like
different.
I just want to point. There's very few. Like Indiana Jones was fighting Nazis. Occasionally, you get a dead bang. Occasionally, you get something other than that. But mostly there weren't Nazis in the movies in the 80s. It was Middle Easterners.
The way
it was Israelis.
Right.
But like whether it be Islam or Jewish or whatever, those were the bad guys.
Yeah. But the bad guys, the majority of the time, were like who we were worried about the most, which was the Russians, because the Nazis were they were done. But it was a way to show, Nazis.
It was the Cold War. Yeah, that was
like I show people, like when I talk about the Nazis, I show people swing kids. Because, you have the kids that end up joining Hitler Youth. Like seeing Noah Wiley as a Hitler Youth, like, was so fucking crazy. But yeah,
my favorite Noah Wiley is when he teams up with the Rocketeer to try to stalk J-Lo in Enough. And I'm like, it certainly was.
Oh yeah, that's a great movie. I love that movie.
Crix, you and I could take both Noah Wiley and the Rocketeer. I know J-Lo could kill him. That was never a threat.
Seen the Rocketeer in person. I was at the airport. It was a weird fucking day. I passed Adam Baldwin. And then I saw him, and then Bill Cott, and it was all in at the TSA. And I said, and this was when Twitter was like, I stopped doing it because I'm like, dude, these celebrities should just be left alone. But I just went spotted at LAX, and the Rocketeer guy actually tweeted me back, and he was like, yeah, but yeah, the media, the way that they wrote the media stuff, like the Canadians, they walk along us. Yeah, but it's like, and then it's the great part of this was like, think of your children pledging allegiance to the maple leaf, mayonnaise on everything, winter 11 months of the year, Anne Murray all day, every day. And I'm like, don't you diss Anne Murray or Anne Murray?
I just want to say, for the record, while not being MAGA, I am pro mayonnaise. I don't know why people hate on mayonnaise so hard.
They don't get it. I'm like, it's just eggs. I'm like, it's eggs and oil.
It's eggs, and yeah, it's creamy and it's good. It's a good dressing.
And then aioli, I'm like, well, you eat aioli, that's fucking mayonnaise, right? That's Italian mayonnaise. The Condiment King even brought it up in Harley Quinn.
Whatever. I don't.
Yeah, like maple syrup, Canada's evil oozes over
That was one of my favorite parts when Alan Alda. That's a good one-liner, a quotable thing when Alan Alda was like, "Yeah, everybody knows how much it sucks to get maple syrup on your fingers."
Oh my God, I'm just like,
that was something I never thought of before, and I was like, "Oh yeah,
everybody
knows
away
that."
Clean eating maple syrup.
Yeah.
No one gets away clean. It's either one little tiny drop on your shirt
Yeah.
or on your pants. Of course, it gets on your
Vilifying
fucking
maple
fingers.
syrup.
And real maple syrup, I'm not even a fan of real maple syrup. I'm going to get killed for this because I think it's too thin. I actually like American maple syrup. 'Cause it's
You like corn syrup?
kind of, but now that I'm a diabetic, I can't really have all that shit. So I get sugar-free stuff.
Well, no. If you're diabetic, you can.
Especially after what happened to Miss Trachtenberg, but that was from her liver transplant because they put it out today that she died from diabetes mellitus, which she probably didn't even know she had diabetes because sometimes diabetes can come up after the liver
sometimes you don't
transplant.
know.
But so back to the movie.
But Maury spends a lot of time on Americans, by definition, are gun nuts and irresponsible with their guns.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. Michael Moore has been wrong about a buttload of shit in the last fucking 20 years, but he's not wrong about
He's
that.
not wrong. Yeah.
What I appreciate about this, though, is like, so the idea that there's this, giant needle, like Chris was bringing up earlier, and here's Rhea Perlman. It's like, oh, look what I got in the fire sale. So here she is stroking this phallic, gun with the phallic needle, and Moore is saying, you guys are obsessed with this. And then there's a montage of like, bomb Canada, guns are free, let me hand them out. Like,
and they're going into the bowling alley and they're checking the bowling bags to make sure there's real balls in them.
And then they're like, no, you can't drink this. Molson's terrible.
Yeah, and it's that same sequence, and I feel like that now as well.
By the way, this is perfect. This is the American Taliban, ladies and gentlemen.
Certain places in LA or in California, Northern California, I'm like, okay, I'm not going here. I'm not going here. I'm not going here because they're so prevalent with their Trump Pence shit. I actually drove down the street to go pick up something from Buy Nothing, and it's all these rich neighborhoods because I live in Sun Valley, and it was just like I'd see a Trump Pence and my.
This is literally, though, this shot, Tracy, that you got it's literally MAGA.
And there's Michael Moore.
And I'm not saying that out of turn. MAGA would tell you, yes, this is us.
That's Michael Moore driving.
But also, what's interesting about this is that look at what Kari puts him in by choice.
A Ford truck.
There we go.
Or Chevy. No, is that a Chevy?
Made in America.
Made in America. So it's like, Mr. Roger and Me, right? Is like
baseball. I mean, like the Chevrolet. They ingrained in us that it's American. Baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet. Like those.
Yeah, and then they kept breaking down, so we bought foreign cars. That's the problem. If you market something that hard about rah America, and then everybody buys it because they're rah America, and then it doesn't work, then they buy Hondas. And then you put tariffs on the Hondas and you fuck everybody.
I've had a Honda for almost 20 years.
I think it's time everyone watch Gung Ho again because there are a lot of lessons that Ron Howard film too.
Where's the boss?
But dude,
International House of Pancakes, Silver Dollar.
So then going back to the movie, so we've got the conspiracy theorist who works in the Canadian side of things, wearing a fake Canadian thing, trying to cosplay Canadian terrorists, right? justify the president's war with Canada that nobody asked for.
And then they get arrested as terrorists.
They get arrested. Yeah.
That's what happened.
That guy was like one of the best characters in Slapshot because he was just so filthy mouthed. And there was a
I love this. I love Jim Belushi in this movie. God bless him.
There's actually a scene that was cut from the movie, which was him and one of the writers, or Wilcox from SCTV. She was one of the writers, and they were dressed in beaver hats. And if you want to check any of this out, it's on IMDb, the Did You Know section, or you can also go to, because that's where I do a lot of research before I write about movies. But yeah.
I'll
there.
Yeah.
And this graphic is amazing because one of the Trump talking points is like, do you know that we have the longest border between the United States and Canada? And the fact that the news even puts some of the people like in the Great Lakes, you're like, it's so perfectly just done. Like we're so done we can't even get the graphics right. Like there's no one's floating on a lake.
It looks like they stole it from Hands Across America and then just
it's so Hands Across America. Where's Kathleen Turner? Let's do
Hands Across.
I gotta run for a second to deal with my face pain. But
your face
like
is getting
just
red,
if you get to this, Tracy,
I'll stop.
Yeah, just stop.
We'll
Yeah.
set up the scene.
I'll be right back.
All
But
right.
Keep going through the narrative.
Where are we now?
So now we've got a situation where
They dumped the trash.
Rhea Perlman has been kidnapped.
She's been left behind.
Been left behind and kidnapped because she was left behind. So she's been imprisoned, basically. Not kidnapped, but imprisoned.
She was sent to a mental hospital.
Because she's weird and likes guns and is Rhea Perlman. So, the Canadians are like, oh, we're really worried about you. And so they kind of put her in like this thing. So literally they sent her to this hospital for rehab. And so she's going to wake up with like all these stuff. I was getting ahead of ourselves. But the idea that like John Candy is like, oh, that's Honey. What's going on? And then you see Honey. And so the way that, again, to your point, Crick, so much of this movie is about how the media exacerbates, enhances, flat out lies, makes up, or creates a narrative that's sort of true, but not really. But it keeps things going, and it keeps getting, it ratchets attention to this potential war with Canada, because this like one formerly hacker employee, now turned really bad, border cop, was left behind while they were doing stupid shit. And now the Canadians are like, yeah. And so literally Alda comes out and is like, you have to release Honey, and it's this thing where it's
free honey. And the funny part was, on top of that, was that their whole goal was just to dump trash. Because Canada's super clean. Like in a way, I've been to a lot of parts of Canada, but like when Roy Boy goes, "Are you sure we're in Canada?" And Honey goes, "You smell anything?" And he's like, "No." And she goes, "Exactly, Canada." and she's so Carla.
Oh, she's great.
Carla. As I always think of this as Carla left Boston, went to Niagara. Yeah. And then was like, fuck it, and then became a cop, because you really can't think of Cheers without looking at her, obviously. But we were just saying that Honey is, for me, was when I first saw it, it was Carla left Cheers, left Boston, went to Niagara, and then all this shit happened.
Has Rhea? I know she has, and I can feel it in my vague old man memory. But I feel like she's played sweet parts, not Carla parts.
Well, the creator of Barbie most recently. Like,
yeah, that's true. She was sort of sweet, but also like,
well, she didn't pay her attention.
She was somewhat terrifying on that role. In that role, for
people who are listening and not watching, Jeff Luce has a great line. It's like, one of my favorite scenes in this movie is when the Americans don't believe that Ottawa is the capital of Canada. And it was Toronto.
For 2 seconds when they were like, "What's the capital?" And I went Toronto, and I was like, "No, it's Ottawa." No. Of the CN Tower, that needle.
That's like when people say the capital of California is Los Angeles.
Sacramento. Stack of tomatoes.
Yeah.
Well, nobody knows outside of California what Sacramento is.
So we now have this, fake outrage that the media is blowing up, very Fox News style, amplified, which sets our idiots out to try to rescue Honey. And so they're like, we're going to go to Canada. We're going to figure it out. And then talk to us about this scene.
Oh my God. Okay. So these two people, really quick, I want to give them props, because these two were very, very well-known Canadian actors, and one of them was in the gal that plays Ruthie. She was in like Police Academy, Bullies, Prom Night, and
she's in Police Academy. By the way, she's one of the great jokes, right?
Yeah, she's the old lady.
She's the old lady who says, "Get my cat out of the tree," and Tackleberry says, "No problem, man." And shoots it out of the tree.
And the guy who plays Pops, his name is Jack Mather. Ruthie is Beth Amos. Jack Mather, he was also in a bunch of movies that people would recognize. He was in Billy Madison, Silver Streak, which I hope you guys do someday, and Anne of Green Gables, I think, is what he was most known for. And these two, it's like, I think this is like the electricity grid.
They're the guard.
They're gonna be like, it's gonna be like security up to the tits, and they walk in ready to rumble, and it's like, she's fucking knitting. And then when they tie them all up and everything, she's like, "I think I like this." I think I like this.
And then by mistake, Candy basically shuts off all the Canadian grid, so they go dark because he's an idiot, and so that starts to ratchet up the way it's reported, and all this like, wait, how did this happen? Who shut off?
And now the president is like, "We need that guy to kind of back off a little bit."
And he's a little. which brings us to this scene, Todd.
Oh my God, this is
Even
when
right.
when our American heroes are posing as Canadians so they can rescue Honey from what they think is a Canadian gulag.
And they all have, and I love that they've got like a prisoner who's like wearing a Brooks Brothers suit, who's like, well, yes, I did try to buy off properties and sell them. And you're like, what?
Yeah, he's like, this guy, he bought his property, sold and fired everybody. And then like next to him is a guy who's like, he had too many bad moods and he looks like a tough. And then you got the big dude at the end who looks like a biker. And the guy in the suit is the only one who gets the cattle prod.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then after that, he goes, do you want some water?
It's like,
And then the only other scene that I've ever seen between two Canadian Mounties that still kills me every time I see it is the Dave Thomas, Joe Flaherty combo in that 70s show when the kids go to Canada to buy beer
oh.
and they get busted. And they end up in a very similar building to this one. And also when you look at the jails, I was like, dude, if Canadian jails look like this, I would go. Because every cell was really nice and they had a place to sit and TV and like little tchotchkes everywhere. And I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
You know, but we all know this was at the time too where everybody was like, oh yeah, Canada, they're so nice. I'm like, do you know that there's just as many racists and just as many gangsters?
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure.
What also is funny is that he more completely wants to be like, look, Americans are mostly dumb, they're obsessed with guns, and the media is ridiculous. I think all those things we can probably agree on.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
I do have this very scene.
Let's play the scene
to show you. Just so you know, my friends came over the other day to distract me from my tooth pain, and I made them do this. So here you go. People under duress being forced to do an Anderson Family reenactment. Here you go.
Who are you?
I'm your worst nightmare. I'm a citizen with a constitutional right to bear arms.
Take the pelts. Take whatever you want.
We don't want your stinking pelts.
Take some fudge. Just leave me alone.
Didn't you hear him? We're your worst nightmare.
My worst nightmare involves a pack of rabid wolves who was stuck somewhere in the Yukon. And there were tall, skinny rabbits. And they were drinking heavily.
Shut up! We want your prisoner. Where is she?
I don't know what you're talking about, eh?
The boot? It's about what we're talking about. And enough of that A business. You're gonna learn how to talk right. You understand me?
We got ways of making you pronounce the letter O.
Well played.
That
friend.
last line, by the way, is my favorite line in the movie. We have ways of making you pronounce the letter O.
I thought your friend, I was just went, is that Tom Lank? And which brings me to another thing that happens in the movie. It's so quick that you miss it. When Boomer is in the bar and he's like, you're going to do this and you're going to do that. And then they're like, Snake. And the guy turns around. I swear to fucking God, I will say this to this day. It's Bronson Pinchot. But who the person actually is listed in the credits is one of Michael Moore's producers who had worked with him on Bowling for Columbine. But I swear to God, you look at that scene again, it looks like a dirty, greasy Bronson Pinchot. And that's where my Mandela effect kicks in because I'm like, it's not Bronson Pinchot, but it fucking looks like him.
I love it. Well, also, one of the things I love about what Moore does, like when everyone's overreacting to the Honey kidnapping, which isn't a kidnapping, all this good stuff. There's a montage, but this close-up I just had to get where they're sort of burning a Bryan Adams album.
Yeah, I was surprised there wasn't a Corey Hart one in there too.
Like a Blue Blue Jays Toronto, like all of the stuff Molson had, like all of it. But I'm like, that's just Bryan Adams. I mean, like he just goes there, and it's so joyful. And then of course his close-up because he gives himself a second cameo as a gun nut.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but he was in the truck. Yeah, he's like this. He's like, I think he's listed as anti-Canadian something.
Yeah.
In the credits.
But
his energy, Michael Moore's energy, is exactly that of a gun nut. He's just not a gun nut. It's a weird thing. Sometimes he doesn't know where to put his energy.
And that's why I liked Bowling for Columbine was because you know, he didn't rely on just himself. Like the animation stuff that's in that movie, amazing. And
It
that's
was
why I really
interesting.
appreciated it. But this
I
one,
thought it was
had-
messy and at times kind of offensive.
yeah.
But Jeff
I
Hughes
want to, yeah.
was awesome, and he should have broken through more too. I loved him. I love when he was.
But did Stephen Wright not like as far? I assume what Jeff is saying is Stephen Wright should have broken through as an actor.
As an actor, because I'll say as a
And
Canadian, he was
I don't
famous.
think that's possible. I don't think Stephen Wright is an actor. I think Stephen Wright is Stephen Wright, and he
He
does
should
his
have been in
thing.
more movies.
And if you know how to write for Stephen Wright, which this movie did, and
let him
So
write
I
it.
Married an Axe Murderer did, and a lot of other things, but then it's not that he didn't break through; it's that Stephen Wright only had Stephen Wright. So
And sometimes they just don't want to make movies. Like Eminem, the only reason he's been in a couple movies is pure luck, actually, outside of 8 Mile. Like he doesn't like The Interview. Like I think that was probably one of the last. There was Interview and Funny People, where he played himself in Funny People, and he's like, "What do you want? Take my fucking picture? What do you want?" And I actually prefer that, because Stephen Wright to me is a different flavor of Jello. Because when you had all that, because he was part of that Boston crew of him and Dennis Leary and Don Herrera and all these guys, and they almost all lived in the same fucking house for a very long time. And so with Stephen Wright, the whole thing is monotone, and he's monotone, and it's better that way. And to try to make him do something he doesn't.
well,
he
it's the
doesn't wanna
ultimate
do,
deadpan. So yeah, if you have to write to the ultimate deadpan, and people
yeah.
did like his
Quentin
cameo and
Tarantino did in Reservoir Dogs, like the behemoth.
yeah,
like,
yeah, that's the perfect use of Stephen Wright, or the cameo he had in So I Married an Axe Murderer, where
Yeah.
he's a pilot who's kind
By
of
the
high.
way, let's give a shout out to So I Married an Axe Murderer, because that was so like Harriet, sweet Harriet. I mean, that is one of the greatest of the.
It's
I think
such a
my
good-
favorite part in that movie.
It's such
is
a
the-
good dumb movie. It's such
my
a good
God,
dumb
the
movie.
chief, Alan Arkin and Anthony
Arkin.
Paulia's scenes together were
Yeah.
like
Oh my
fucking
God.
hilarious.
Alan
Like, "Am I mean
Arkin
enough?"
as
And he's
the guy, as
he yells
the
at him and walks away and comes back and he goes,
as the cop who's trying harder to be a bigot cop.
no, he's like their chief, and he's trying to be like angry chief, and so he's like,
No, but he's trying to be, he's like, is it too much if I call him
Yeah.
a wop?
yeah.
Is wop too
like
much?
a bad cop. But I think also Nancy Travis is another one of the, like, there's certain actresses that are way better. She works a lot, but like she deserved a better career too. It's like Michelle Monaghan. I was like, girl, in a perfect world, you'd be the next Sandra Bullock because you can do it. Like I just
With Nancy
Amanda
Travis,
Plummer
I always
also,
went back-
Plummer
like,
amazing.
Yeah, Amanda Plummer too. But like I went back with Nancy Travis, the film I always think of is Internal Affairs with
Ooh.
her. And so like
Fantasy.
So I Married an Axe Murderer, and she had also done another movie in between there, or it was a television show, and I think she was playing like a sitcom wife or something.
Yeah,
I'm like, that's cool. But
Like,
I liked
that should
Internal
be.
Affairs,
Yeah.
and I also like, So I Married an Axe Murderer. I was like, she's an interesting choice because she always does these really fucking intense movies.
Mhm.
And then, she does this one, and she's got, Amanda Plummer, who's just intense in everything she does. Even if she's the nicest kid on the planet in the film,
Yeah.
she still has this weird intensity about her because I always say it's because of her eyes.
Yeah.
And so to see those two play off each other, and to see Mike Myers play off of that,
Yeah.
and just to see how, I mean, that's a really cohesive cast. You really can't say anything bad about any single
No,
person that's in
it's
it,
a
even
great-
though 5 of them are
Great
Michael
movie.
Myers.
This has a great cast, and as we're talking about, has a lot.
Amazing cast. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a lot of Canadians, which I really thought was funny as shit. Like this scene right here. I almost changed my name to Mange Me Brief, because that means it's my shorts in Canadian. And when he walks up and he's like, you have to, the wine drinkers, the French Canadians, the Quebecois. And he's like, so everything has to be in English and French. And then when he goes, you can either pay I'm gonna have to fine you. So you can either pay $1,000 Canadian or $10 American.
Like, okay.
And at that time, that's really how it was. Like the American dollar was like, you could a lot of people would go to Canada and go duty-free shopping. And
That's what I did in high school. I would go up to Canada to drink.
Yeah, and plus you
Because
could
not only
you
could
only had
I
to be
drink,
19.
but
Yeah.
also it was cheap.
Yeah,
By the
you only had to
way,
be 19 to drink.
That was true up until 3 months ago. That's what's so great about this film.
Yeah,
That
it's
reminded
fucked
me of
up.
something too, because like when I went to University of Idaho, but this was way before that. But University of Idaho is only 7 miles away from Washington State University. And all the Washington State kids would come to Idaho to drink because at the time the drinking age was only 19. And now it's the opposite. Like the drinking age is of course 21. But Idaho, weed is still illegal. Washington State, it's legal. And so right before you get to the Washington State border, it's literally 7 miles. You turn off to go to the airport, and that's Washington. And so right next to it was a place that used to be a plant nursery that's now a dispensary. And my friend said, be sure to look in the parking lot. And sure enough, I looked in the parking lot and it was all Idaho license plates.
I believe that. I believe that. So we'll quickly wrap up the movie.
Yeah.
So she wakes up, and the candy stripers are there. She, of course, ties them up. The gun.
I would have too. Those kids were way too fucking cheerful.
There was a certain Mormon-esque quality. There was a weird.
But this was actually Michael Moore actually lampooning something from Canada, which is the Canadian healthcare system.
Yeah.
But I'm like, the question I had for you guys when I was watching it, I was like, so is he making fun of the, social medication program or was he making fun of the way Americans see it?
America. He was making fun of how Canadians treat their patients as opposed to us. Like you had all that bullshit where it's like, no, you can't do it today. No, you can't do it today. No, you can't do it today. And it's like, you got to pay first and this and that. And Canada's like, you don't got to pay for shit. Let's take care of you. Cause like
she wakes up.
Honey wakes up literally like
surrounded with teddy bears, animals.
She looked like E.T. when she sat up. Like
she's got all these animals. She's very comfort. Everything is light and clean. She's got really nice kids trying to help her. All this.
How bright the sun is.
I mean, it's like a sitcom, and then you've got her just going.
But they're not. I mean, the point I was trying to make is they're not doctors. They're candy stripe nurses, and they say the doctors aren't available for 6 months, so we'll take care of you until the doctors can see you.
Yeah, that's America.
That's an American take on socialized medicine.
Yes, but like she's being taken care of, and obviously already has.
She's being taken care of.
But I guess what I'm saying is, like, I think Michael Moore kind of screwed up a little bit here because he didn't know precisely what he was making fun of, because there is stuff to make fun of about socialized medicine, wait times and all that stuff. But it's like,
which is true, but he's doing that here as well. I think it works. That's why it's a scene. I think it works.
It's like,
I get what you mean.
He's satirizing from both.
We have Perlman says it from the American point of view, to your point. But then they're like, we're here to make sure you're okay while you're waiting, as opposed to like in America, you would die bleeding to death in the ER.
But I think at the same time, I think, Todd, what you're going back to what you're saying, and this is me, is Americans at that time, they really didn't know a whole lot about Canada. They chose not to. So everything they knew about emergency rooms and hospitals came from not General Hospital, but like ER and Chicago Med and Quincy and Trapper John MD and like all this stuff that was kind of had funny points, but I would especially turn to ER because that's where you see there are some serious problems with the medical system. And even for how far back that show was, it's still like you could re-air that shit today. And I think The Pit with Noah Wyle is also bringing that example in. So they're not seeing that, Canada has free healthcare, the UK has free healthcare, because they don't care enough to research any of this shit, because they're probably like, I'm never going there. I'm never moving there. I'm an American. I don't need to do shit. Like I just saw a video the other day of a bartender owner pushing an American woman out of her bar and then kicking her in the face. And the whole thing was because this woman tried to haggle over a drink.
Oh, I
and
thought
was
you
a
were going to say
real
a
asshole.
Murray joke in there somewhere.
No. She was haggling over a drink. I'm like, you don't haggle when you're in another country. You haggle at the market. You don't haggle at a food and drink establishment. Like I would thrown her out on ass. I wouldn't have kicked her in the face. But it's like those kind of things that some Americans think that they're just going to get away with it. Like in Killing Zoe, when they robbed the bank and the guy stands up and goes, "Hey, I'm an American. You can't do this." Bang! And they immediately kill him. And that's the attitude you should have going to any other country is don't be like, "Hey, I'm an American." Especially now after Trump, even Trump's last presidency, I was like, I'm Canadian. I was like, I'm Canadian.
I've always been that way when I've traveled.
You don't
I'm
have
Korean. I was like, I'm Korean. I don't know shit.
But also, let's stop doing that at home too. Like, just be civil, be decent. We got no problems anywhere. Hey, that's a new thing.
You don't know better than the people you're with. You don't know better than the people you're with. Tracy, take us through the end of this movie.
So this is one of my favorite sight jokes. So we've ratcheted things up. The press has helped. We have idiots that are not understanding the assignment, and then like, oh shit, it's DEF CON.
And they misspelled DEF CON.
Well,
that's not how you spell DEF CON.
But here's what's great about this scene. So we've got the Strangelove set Redux on the cheap, right? Yeah. And then they're like, let's do red lights because no, it's really bad. It's DEF CON 4. It's like, actually, DEF CON 1 is war, DEF CON 5 is peace, and 4 is not a big deal. So that joke in this room is, oh, it's DEF CON 4, we're good. Like September 11th was DEF CON 3. Like Rumsfeld said, get ready to go to 2, but we stayed at 3. Okay?
It's just like the color coding at the airports. Remember those?
I feel like it was a Dr. Strangelove, like War Games kind of mashup.
It is.
And War Games, I did not know about NORAD. I didn't know NORAD existed. Like, I don't know, I was like 14 or 15. I'm like, Matthew Broderick, he's so cute. Yeah. And then when they got into NORAD and they're like, take us down to DEF CON, blah, 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 blah. I was like, Barry, and it was Barry, what's his face?
I'll piss on Sparklet if that would help.
Yeah, the guy from not the guy from Raising Her. Yeah, it was the guy from Raising. Was it?
Yeah, it's the guy from,
no, the guy from Northern Exposure.
But so here's the thing, though. But this is another one of the things you talked about Mandela effect earlier, Crix, and you're right because everyone's like DEF CON 5, like a totally different movie. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. You know, Kate Hudson's like, you guys, serious? It's like a DEF CON 5. It's like no. DEF CON 1. Americans get it wrong. So there is a line of dialogue in this scene where like, we're at DEF CON 4, which is either really good or really bad. I don't know. It could be both. Because Moore is making fun of the fact you guys don't know the difference between DEF CON 5, which is peace, and DEF CON 1, which is we're fucking annihilated, right?
And so, plus it's proof that the writers are not doing their research and not double checking. Like, don't they have assistants that are supposed to do that for
them? There's a line of dialogue in the scene that says it's either really okay or really not, because that's how most people see it. And I just used the How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. It's a line that Kate Hudson has, like, you guys, this is really bad. It's DEF CON 5. I'm like, well, then there's no problem, Kate. But that's the part where you're like Christine Peters and Bob Evans. You should have done your research, but Michael Moore is like, he's thumbing his nose up at us, right? So really quickly, we wrap up.
Yeah, wrap it up.
Everything is like coming up.
In a burp.
We've got, so now here's something that's interesting. So you've got John Candy, who obviously is a physical comedian, and in most movies they do lots of heavy set jokes. They really don't do that here, and I'm wondering if that's because Michael Moore himself is more sensitive, because the joke in this scene is that he comes in here, he has to climb up all these stairs.
He doesn't even break a sweat.
He's not even out of breath when he gets there, which is clever. And so, but then, so you think, oh my God, he's going to save the day because he's John Candy. He can't. Oh, I'm afraid of heights. You can go up those stairs, not break a sweat. But then Rhea Perlman, playing the role of Ellen Ripley, right? She gets there really quickly. So you've got like the countdown to the world ending, right? Hacker Dynamics, Halliburton, to your point, Crix. Right?
And you've got the Omega team, which is Omega Force, which is technically Delta Force. I don't think they were allowed to use the name.
Oh, like because Chuck Norris would have
literally dying up the stairs. And then when they're trying to invade Canada, one dude stubs his toe and he's on his back and he's like, it's just my toe. And they're like, don't worry, bro.
Don't worry. But like all those guys couldn't make it up there. And John Candy inexplicably is totally fine. You've got Rhea Perlman as action hero destroying basically, you know, Joshua, if you're into war games or whatever, NORAD. So like with a couple seconds to spare, stops the world from being annihilated, right? Thank you, because of this situation. And what I love about Michael Moore, the coda, because he's always poking at America, because there's a lot to poke at. He's like, my God, we saved the world. And here we are, look at America with this ugly pollution.
Yeah, and she's like, oh, America.
"Hello, America," and you're like, "Oh my god!" And just when you think it can't get better, they do a run through of all the characters. Where like Rip Torn's like, "Oh shit, I had to kill
Animal House. It's like
because like Hogan's Heroes was not real or whatever." Hi, Pliskin.
committed suicide.
Hey,
because Hogan's
Pliskin!
Heroes wasn't real.
What's going on?
He's so adorable.
Oh, Honey was humanitarian of the
Little
year by the
kisses.
NRA.
He likes this film very much. But then what? So you end on that. You do a coda about all the characters. Hello. And then we end on this, which I love. Welcome to Mexico, your free trade neighbor, home of GM de Mexico, Walmart de Mexico, IBM de Mexico. And then the last image is a tank driving through there by the nut from Canada who failed with the war in Canada, now wants to do a war in Mexico. Once again, Michael Moore, very prescient, because look what's happening now, right?
And then they're like Roy Boy, whereabouts unknown, which is just like D-Day in Animal House was just like whereabouts unknown.
Exactly.
So it's like funny that he pulls from that. But the other thing I wanted to talk about real quick, which is such an American thing, is when they're all in the truck and they're singing "Born in the USA."
And they don't
all
know
they know is "Born in the USA."
Hilarious.
It's a song about
the working
protesting
class.
the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And then they do Oklahoma, and all they know is Oklahoma. I was ready for them to start singing "On the Road Again" because.
But that's so. I mean, that's so true about America and the songs that it loves. "Born in the USA" is not a pro-America.
But it's all
not a
Reagan thought it
pro-USA
was because
song.
he used it for.
But that's what
No, but that's what I'm saying. I mean,
Yeah.
and they do that all the time. They
Yeah.
constantly take songs that sound patriotic because they're awesome, like
But
"Born
it
in the
also
USA."
makes me wonder
However overplayed it
if
is.
to get
But-
the royalties, they were like, you can only afford to sing one line. Because they do that in some movies. It's like that's why you don't hear the whole song. They can only afford to pay for some of it.
I'm
And so
guessing Michael Moore, and I might be wrong, but I'm guessing Michael Moore went ahead and asked Bruce Springsteen, "Can I do this bit with your song where
And that
all
was
the
wrong.
Americans
And
in
because
the
of Bowling
truck
for
just say
Columbine,
that
he
over and
probably
over
said
again?"
yes.
And he was like, "Yes, because that's exactly the problem with the
In
way my song is received."
In 95, Michael Moore, who always thought he was more clever than he was, because it was very famous back then, people have forgotten except us old folks, but famously
People loved him.
was lampooned because Ronald Reagan walked out to Born in the USA with the RNC when he accepted the nomination, second time around, pre-total Alzheimer's collapse, and to that song. And it was pointed out to him, if you listen to anything beyond the chorus. And so the joke was the chorus versus the song. And again, to Todd's point earlier in the program, people hear what they want to see. MAGA would look at that image of like, yeah, where's the Trump flag? Think it's great. We look at it and go, American Taliban. It depends on your war shot test, right?
Right.
So would be commenting on Reagan's use of that. And 95 was close enough to go, yeah, because it was that well known. So it was kind of an old joke to your point earlier, Crix,
Yeah,
about
because
high hopes. That's old too.
there's
So what Moore's doing.
Yeah, because there's so many movies that I've seen, and I'm sure Willie Nelson would have been like, y'all can sing the whole fucking song for all I care. But when you see certain movies and they're all like, yeah, we're going to road trip on the road again. Just can't wait to get on the road again. Road again. Like,
but I don't-
Yeah.
But I feel that way about Oklahoma. I'm like, because I don't like musicals, but Oklahoma.
where the French run free up of
But
the
like,
trains.
I mean, I know more about that song because of Meg Ryan being adorable, and when Harry Met Sally, sorry with the fringe on time, she does her whole
But
thing.
if you watched Oklahoma when Hugh Jackman was in it, which he won a Tony for, I think it would change your mind because he
I
was
don't think it would.
so
I
great.
like him though. I like him.
Imagine being one of the people who knows all the words to Don McLean's American Pie.
Oh,
I do a
And you
karaoke.
go to the MAGA Don McLean American Pie concerts.
yeah.
And Don McLean sings all the lyrics that he wrote. And he's pro MAGA now because it makes him a lot of fucking money. But he sings the lyrics no different. He doesn't change them. They're the same lyrics. Nobody understands them.
But here's what I
They
like about
don't make sense. But it like
It's the
it-
Bye
it
Bye
makes
Miss
sense
American
on
Pie
any
part.
level.
the levy,
It's
the levy
the
for dry.
death of it's about the death of America, and it's over. And they sing it like it's a national anthem.
But by the
It's
way, the reason we're having this conversation is Michael Morris tapped into something very honest about Americans. Like one of my favorite things now is like the Carnival Cruise, bring your family. And then they cut it to Iggy Pop's fucking Lust for Life, a pie into heroin. A pie into heroin use. And they're like, let's go with the family down the Carnival
My
Cruise.
favorite one though was the ad for the car, and they played Ariana Grande Side to Side. It was like for Spotify or something. So I
Yeah.
don't know if you know, but side to side means that you got fucked so hard that you cannot walk normal. You walk side to side. And then the car comes, I don't know, somebody probably finally hit them to it and said, yeah, no. And
Yeah.
the commercial was never seen again. But, you know, it's like, yeah, you see these things and they Lust for Life. I'm like, isn't that about heroin and running around in a heroin high?
I remember the
Purpose
one I
Day, too.
remember more like, and this is already 10 years ago now, but there was a Ben Folds song called Landed.
Oh,
The lyrics
yeah.
were "Come pick me up, I've landed," and the whole song is about a guy who's been in a toxic relationship, and he's sort of like, "I'm sorry, I made you guys all my enemies, and I shouldn't have,
Yeah.
Right.
and I've
People look at
broken
Ben
up with the
Folds
person
like
who
he-
made me
yeah.
do that. Can you come pick me up? I've landed," and it was the theme song for a Travelocity commercial, and I was like,
And
God bless
everybody-
him for getting the money, but like,
Every,
what are
the
they
thing about
thinking?
Ben Folds was everybody's like harmless white guy. I'm like, you know, Brick is about a guy's girlfriend getting an abortion.
Getting an abortion,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Watch
like,
You're the Worst. He's on that show, and there's jokes made about it. But we've got to do final thoughts about this movie.
We will
so we
do
can do-
and one last thing just to wrap that up, because I love that, because I'm old enough to remember when I used to go to clubs for a very short period of my life, and you would have like the Smith songs, you know, like How Soon Is Now, and
I love that
you
song.
see all these goths going, I am the sun and the air. I'm like, no, it's son of the guy, and the air is of the king of the apparent son. I'm like, you're just, they're like doing these emoting, like melting. I'm like, that's not the lyrics. You're literal. That's what Todd's point is. Like, I've landed. It's like, no, dude, I understand you think literally you've landed, but that's not what the song is about.
Land-
The only literal
He's
song that everybody,
landed because he's
Right.
given up the shit that you hate,
only
and
song,
he's a loser.
the only song from the 90s that everybody understood what it was about for like right away was Third Eye Blind's Jumper. Everybody was running around using semi-charmed life
Let me try to
for
play.
their commercials and shit. And I'm like, you know, that song's about doing crystal meth. They actually say doing crystal meth in the
Yeah,
song,
in the
but
lyrics, yeah.
because of the radio edit, nobody ever heard that part. So people were like, I'm going to put this on my
Yeah.
fucking commercial. I'm going to use this. I'm going to use that. I'm like, people, don't you pay people for this? Don't you pay people to check?
I love that this is such a good part of the movie because it happens a lot. The rule of threes. So we've covered that. Final thoughts. I think watch it because of what's going on. Todd, final thoughts for you?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's like my experience of this movie has been through multiple decades. So most currently, I would say watch it, especially if you like anybody in the cast. You'll get to see them.
Dan
'Cause
Aykroyd, we didn't
everybody
even
in
talk
this-
about.
Everybody, like, I'll say this about actors. I'm an actor, so I can talk about actors. Everybody in this movie, there's nobody who's phoning it in. Everybody, and sometimes it's totally disparate. Like, because Bill Nunn, by the way, turns in the most heartfelt, honest performance in this movie. And it doesn't always work because other people are Dan Aykroyd. If that makes sense. So, but everybody's bringing it. It's a great cast. If you certainly love this era of comedy people, watch it. It's fun, even if you're not laughing out loud. And I found myself actually laughing out loud this last time I watched it with new perspectives and whatnot. But even if you're not laughing at it, it's amusing and it's enjoyable. It's only 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah, I
PG,
literally
so you can watch
watched
it. Like if you're a mom and dad, you can watch it with your kids. Your kids won't get it. They're gonna fall asleep, which is great. And you'll be amused the entire 90 minutes.
Crix, final thoughts for you. People to watch.
Yeah.
Why? Make your pitch.
Yeah. Well, real quick, Jeff Luce was like, greatest song of the 90s is Harvey Danger's Flagpole Sit Up. But even then, you weren't sure what that was about. but it harkens back. I always call that the updated version of Dream Police because it's the same thing. But for this movie, like I always kind of try to recommend movies in twos. Like I used to work at a movie theater in the 90s, and so in 1990 I was a theater usher, and as anybody, you get to go see movies for free when you're off the clock or when you're off work. And one year, 1990, there were 4 movies in the theater that I really, really were in love with. That was Goodfellas, Graveyard Shift, Akira Kurosawa's Dreams, and Memphis Belle. So I would do double features. So I would do like but the double feature always had Memphis Belle in there somewhere. So it was Memphis Belle and Goodfellas, Memphis Belle and Graveyard Shift. But the ones that I recommend now in a 2 is Memphis Belle and Akira Kurosawa's Dreams, because you have 2 different takes on war. And so with this one, I'm always like, I always bring up Wag the Dog. So this is Canadian Bacon and Wag the Dog should be seen together. And I really think that these 2 films could be shown in high schools. Because the language is language is not bad. And with
and there's a lot of white people, so it's not DEI.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. the Bill Nunn campfire scene where they're talking about which of the black characters that die before the white.
Oh my God, he's like,
he's
like, yeah, who was it he was driving?
I mean, honestly, I think as far as movies are concerned, and probably most pop culture, I think this is the first time that this trope has been mentioned and made a meta part of the narrative.
And he also called it too with like, how come you don't see any black people playing hockey? It was like a couple of years after that you saw quite.
But this joke continues today.
Yeah.
It continues today. I don't know if you've seen Hard Eyes or any of the news. It still happens.
Yeah, I just love this movie. I would absolutely recommend you watch Canadian Bacon and then Wag the Dog right after, because the only person who really technically gets killed in Canadian Bacon is Halliburton, dude.
Which is fine.
And they were like, and then his body was on display.
Because he has a heart attack. He doesn't get.
Well, he punches him. Kevin.
Well, yeah.
And then, and then it's like at the end, it was like his body is on display at the Republican National Center from blah 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 blah.
Yeah, like he's Stalin. Like he's Stalin. You just like walk around.
Yeah. And then in Wag the Dog, the character that dies is the producer, Dustin Hoffman's character, because he wants to, because it's such a masterpiece to him, and he's like, I'll never produce anything like this again. I want to go public. I want to tell everybody it was me, and so they had to kill him. Like they had they did have a choice, but the government's like,
no.
And he was gone. And so that's why I look to these 2 movies when it comes to politics, and especially Trump. Yeah. It's like, listen, this is Trump in the funny way, and this is Trump in a not so funny way.
Well, that's a good segue. Let's do Be Bad, Be Best. I will go first. Crix, without knowing it, has led to the perfect thing, because I agree with you. Watching this film, I thought absolutely, it would be a good double feature, which I want to say, Be Bad, Be Best. It is the aforementioned Wag the Dog that I chose. One of my favorites, because it's so good, because I do think it takes the media on in a really smart way. And I love also the personification that, Dustin Hoffman does of like, Robert Evans. And the idea is like, oh, this is nothing. I once did the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, like 3 died before the day of production, nothing. And like, it just gets, it skewers Hollywood. It skewers the media. It skewers like the alpha types that populate both. And I think it's really wickedly smart. For me, it's a B best. And it's funny because we spent a lot of time tonight talking about Canadian Bacon and how it's more relevant probably than.
And even Canadian Bacon is an American term. They don't say Canadian; they just say back bacon or bacon.
But that I would say Canadian Bacon is more relevant now than it was when it came out because of the craziness that's happening. I think people forget because of the context of when Wag the Dog came out, when Bill Clinton was like, "Hey, so there's this guy named Osama bin Laden." And I think we should absolutely take him out. And the Republicans were so concerned about American president getting a blowjob. Month 6 is nothing, but the blowjob. No, it's not the blowjob they minded, because they were cheating on their wives too. It was the lying about the blowjob that got him.
And then got busted. Yeah.
But Clinton said, we need to take bin Laden out because he is determined to destroy the homeland. And what did the Republicans say? Oh, you're just wagging the dog, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
And so that film that has been lost in that time, not defending any of it, but the truth was that became a phrase at the end of the Clinton era and this not, but we didn't use it as an excuse to not go after somebody. And so I think that film, to your point, Crix, is spot on. And I love that we were both thinking these should be seen together, which is why I paired it. Freaking watch it again, guys. Like, I don't know. Obviously,
Yeah.
that's too. Todd, and Pliskin does as well. Pliskin is a big fan of the Wagging the Dog because it has dog in the title. He did not like Power of the Dog because he thought it was a misnomer title.
Mhm.
And speaking of Nikki Cat, real quick, it was like in Dazed and Confused, the nerdy guy, and I always think this when I look at Trump, when he's like, he's fucking with me, the nerdy guy, and he's like, I'm gonna kick his ass, male dominant monkey motherfucker, and runs off. And so every time I see Trump and his administration, the first thing that runs through my head is male dominant monkey motherfucker.
Nikki Cat
And Nikki Cat was the guy that and he's like, I'm gonna punch him and everybody will stop the fight. So he goes up and just whiffs Nikki Cat, and then he's like, and that also reminds me of Trump, because Trump would do something like that and go, huh? And he realizes nobody's coming to his aid, which has happened in the last Trump organization. Like Putin's like, I put you in office, but you're on your own, bro.
The problem with Trump is too many people come to his aid. I would
Too
say.
many cooks.
I'll judge this movie. And now, like, all you said, Tracy, makes me think, shit, I guess I need to watch this again. Both Crix and Tracy saying these things. Because the first time I saw Wag the Dog, I thought it was a complete snore. I was uninterested, and I like my knee-jerk reaction is, this is a B bad. It's not worth watching. It's bad Dustin Hoffman shit, and which there is so much.
I will not.
But of course, because of
1992.
Barry Levinson, that's where they got all the pull, was because Barry Levinson directed it, and
he was reteaming with Hoffman from Rain Man and Oscar winners, blah blah blah.
Yeah, and Rain Man sucked. So
that is not.
I have to hassle with a political version.
Your safe word is Qantas. Okay. So
I didn't like how they handled autism in that, and especially
I
with
don't
Dustin
care
Hoffman
for
did it.
Rain Man.
I don't like so much about Rain Man.
Every time somebody says 20 minutes to Wapner, I'm like, or fart, I'm just like, dude.
So because Wag the Dog is not on my radar, when I was sitting with my poor wife making her watch Canadian Bacon, I was like, go really good with this.
Oh my God.
Super Troopers 2.
Yes.
In which the Super Troopers, who are great and they like to suck down syrup and stuff. But in this one, it's the Super Troopers, who are American highway patrolmen, and they're fighting Canadian highway patrolmen. And it's also got Brian Cox, like the first one. So
that's what I love, is like the guys from Soup Broken Lizard, they managed to get Oscar winners to come in and do their shit. Donald Sutherland did.
How they raised
Beer Fest,
the Broken Lizard shit is beyond me. I wish I understood it. I feel like I had multiple versions of the Broken Lizard troupe in various places.
Right.
And why I couldn't find the investors they could is beyond me. I want to know more.
Well, I think it was because in Super Troopers 2, because the whole premise was the border was wrong. And so this one Canadian town was technically in the US. So they send these guys to Canada to get the whole place put together. But I think it was because Rob Lowe plays he's like the mayor, and he's like a really famous hockey player. But I also have to give credit to the three guys that played the Canadian Mounties, especially Will Sasso. MacArthur, Hayes MacArthur, and Tyler Labine. Because there's that one scene in Super Troopers 2. If you don't laugh, Todd, I'm going to have to come in and hold your hand. It's the scene where Will Sasso is fucking with Hayes MacArthur, where he's like, yeah, I like that throw mamas from the train. And he's like, that's Danny DeVito. Yeah. And then the other guy kicks in with some other joke, and he's like, that's Danny DeVito.
It's so dumb and delightful. you can't take most of the Broken Lizard movies away from me. I like most of them. I think they're stupid, but I also find them this great mystery of people who can get millions of dollars because their movies cost millions of dollars. I know that's low budget and all that, but like to get millions of dollars together to make a Club Dread or a Super
Oh God, I love that
Troopers
movie.
or any of their other movies like Slam and Salmon. And some of them
Slam
are
and
terrible,
Salmon
like
was a
Slam
little-
and Salmon.
Yeah.
But Super Troopers is great, I think, as a comedy, and Super Troopers 2 is a worthy sequel. But Tracy, what's your take on that?
I remember when this came out. I remember the trailer. Never saw it.
I bought it
Never saw
first
it.
day.
But I mean, what would you say? What would you guess is the?
I mean, it's not my
it's
kind of
not for you. It's not
It's
for
my
you.
kind of comedy, but I'll say Be Best because of everything you guys just said. I'm like, yeah, there's stuff in there for me, probably somewhere hidden.
I mean, there's a brothel and a pancake house, and the one
It's
dude takes his
very-
knife out, and Rob
I don't know if
Williams-
that's a selling point for me, but okay.
It's like Beer Fest in all these movies. Like Broken
Yeah.
Lizard is definitely
Yeah.
a testosterone driven.
Well, they were all fraternity brothers. That's how they met.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's probably why I like them, because I was never in a frat, but my comedy group, the Film Pigs, back
Oh,
in the
the
day
Film
when we got
Pigs.
reviewed in the LA Weekly, they referred to us as a beer fueled frat boy romp. And that was both an insult and a compliment. Obviously. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I was never in a frat and I consider myself not to be that way, but I appreciate that you accept my comedic voice on a level.
Well,
You
there's
know?
a story that Eric Stolhansky, and I think it's Steve Lemmy. I can't remember who actually did it, but Eric Stolhansky, he is actually a disabled actor. A lot of people don't know he doesn't have one of his legs is gone, which is why in Club Dread you saw him missing a leg. But like, I guess when they all first met, he's like, hey, he's like, how adventurous are you? This is Stolhansky. And basically it ended up, he kept stabbing a knife into his leg. And he's like, doesn't hurt. And I think it was Steve Lemmy. He talked into it and he just bam into his leg. But the other thing is Jay Chandrasekhar, right after Super Troopers, really
Who
made a
I've
name for
auditioned
himself.
for 3 times and he's never cast me.
Right,
The
but he's
motherfucker.
he made a name for himself doing sitcoms and TV, and then he was and plus the fact that he's able to go, well, Willie Nelson said he'd do it, and so did Donald Sutherland, and so did Cloris Leachman, and so did the guy who was playing the bad guy, because he's a real famous dude too, which I can't think of his name. But then, and then even like Slam and Salmon, it's like, well, we got Michael Clark Duncan, who had been Oscar nominated for The Green Mile. And it's the fact that Brian Cox will, like, anytime they're like, we're making another movie, come play with us. He's like, sure. And so some people, all they know of him is either Logan Roy, the voice of McDonald's, or Super Troopers. And so I'm like, you should watch I'm like, you want a really fucking funny laugh, go watch Super Troopers 1 and 2, and then turn around and watch Succession. And there's another movie he's in called The Minus Man, which I would always recommend.
Oh yeah, the Owen Wilson
With
movie.
Owen Wilson and
Yeah.
James Garofalo, of all people.
Yeah,
And Sheryl Crow.
that's a weird movie. Yeah,
It is a weird movie, but like
Watchable.
Brian Cox, yeah, like I will defend Broken Lizard to the day I die.
Yeah. I'm weird. I've auditioned for them a bunch of times. I auditioned for Tacoma FD, and they won't have me, and it's a little upsetting.
They're
I'm
shooting
going to
season
say
5.
that.
They just
It's a little
shot
upsetting
season
because
5.
if you like someone, if you're like a fan, and then you go out and audition for them, it's a very nerve wracking
nut shot.
experience. And if they don't accept you, it's a very high school level feeling of rejection.
And that's
let's
kind of-
do
so Why
this.
didn't you cast me?
Yeah, exactly.
When bad films happen to good people, I got one.
All right, Tracy. When bad films happen to good actors or
So-
people,
Once
What?
upon a time, Roland Joffe made great films like The Mission, and he had a moment in The Sun where studios were like, "We will hire you even though you're super."
Yeah.
And so Scarlet Letter Demi Moore, Gary Oldman, Robert Duvall. I love all three. I'm not apologizing for that. I have three. I love them all. Scarlet Letter, what my read on Nathaniel Hawthorne, I didn't remember Hester Prynne taking quite so many baths. I didn't remember that.
Oh, is this the one with Demi Moore?
It's the Demi Moore one. It's an absolutely disastrous thing. And one of my favorite actress interviews ever, and bless Demi Moore, she's like, she had power. Like she had done, all the good stuff, all the big stuff at the peak Demi Moore thing. She's like, I want to be taken seriously. I want to do a period piece. No one ever does that. So she stepped in and she put this film together and used her clout at the moment to get it done. And she gave this interview, which was so genuine. She said, look, I just read the Scarlet Letter and I thought almost nobody does and they should. So I wanted to make the film. And here's the thing that's sad, at least in California. And I think back in the day before we banned books, everybody who ever went to high school who was in sophomore year had to read Scarlet Letter. It's required reading.
Oh, yeah.
But when she was 16, she had dropped out of school and she was posing topless for no judgment, but she was. So she wasn't in high school. So she missed that. But she read it on her own. She loved what whatever she liked about what Hawthorne did. She's like, I'm going to make this film. And at the moment, people are like, whatever you want to do, we're going to do it. And we're going to give you this Tony director. This was designed to be obviously a best actress kind of thing for her, because Hester Prynne is one of those very complicated, interesting, great protagonists in literature. Of course, if you're a smart lady, you want to play one of those roles if you can get a studio to fund it for you. And Gary Oldman, no slouch. Robert Duvall, maybe the actor of his generation, discuss. So you have these three amazing actors / movie stars / a moment, and it's absolutely terrible. And I would cut to my mom, who was one of the all-time great public school educators. Not just me saying that because she was my mom, she's amazing, but like always got like one of the top, who's who of an American teachers. Like mom would get that. And I still get emails from students of hers 50, 60 years ago. Like, like your mom changed my life. She started when I was in college, I'd come home on breaks and she's like, what's going on with the new generation? They keep talking about, and she was just giving me the Scarlet Letter because she taught literature. And I was like, oh, they're just watching the Demi Moore film. They're not reading the book. She's like, I'm sorry, there's a Demi Moore film. And so mom and I watched the Demi Moore film. And of course, as an English teacher, was like, so I remember this. So I had like this total, like all the moods about my mom being just like, I can't believe this happened. And, and mom literally was like, called all the students out who were trying to quote the Demi Moore film as if it was, representative. And I just think it's a terrible film with so many talented people. And this is the category. And I thought, well, this is what this category is here for. I love everybody, but God, this is not your finest moment.
It doesn't. Sometimes they don't work.
You would get more accurate info from Cliff Notes.
Yes.
Get from the Demi. I'm like, this is again. They don't do the research. It's like, I don't remember Hester Prynne flashing her tits like every 15.
Seconds. You know why? Because no.
Was that before? Was that because she had the boob job for striptease? And then
I don't
Was
remember.
that before or after striptease?
I think that this is the striptease is way after.
Yes, before striptease. It's like she's like doing that like run where she's, and
she was trying to get into the real stuff here.
They were giving her all the roles after Ghost that were pretty much Molly.
Yeah, they were trying to. They were trying to make her into the actress that.
It could have been a good role, but the problem was.
I'm just saying. I don't think the substance. I know everybody loves it.
No, they
it's
don't.
Not that great, and she's not that great in it. I'm just sorry, she's not.
I like her in it, but I think the substance has some script problems. Like
I like Demi Moore, but I'd rather watch The Seventh Sign.
Yeah.
The Seventh Sign, where she spends 2 hours, where people are like, "Would you die for him?" She's like, "You guys, I think I finally figured it out. Would you die for him? It could be Jesus.
Leave him alone." It's like, "Leave me alone. I'm pregnant." And they're like, "Yeah, you're pregnant."
The guff is empty, Abby. I mean, shit.
But I feel like that is more suited
for
You're
her. After that, baby. Yeah.
Every actor, every performer has their range and their place, and
you.
Plus, every actor has at least one shitty movie on their resume, and it's
and every actor has a great movie. Like there are actors where I'm like, what? Because they turned in something like I'm gonna get in trouble. Like Andy McDowell in Sex, Lies, and Videotape, where I was like,
by the way,
fuck.
This is my Mandela effect. I always thought Andy McDowell was not good in that film. I was like, Laura San Giacomo should be a star. I walked out going,
He was fucking amazing.
she's the star. And then everyone started casting Andy McDowell. And I was like, wait a minute.
I think it's because British.
But
people
Andy
kinda fell in
McDowell's
love
so
with her.
good in Sex, Lies, and Videotape, and arguably in Shortcuts. But beyond that, I've never it's like nothing she does seems genuine beyond these two movies.
Well, if you look at her,
San
at
Giacomo, I agree with as well, but San Giacomo is even more one note because the only movie she's good in is Sex, Lies, and Videotape.
I
Point
liked
somewhere
her.
else where she
I
can
liked
go.
her in Just Shoot Me in the TV series. Just
Shoot Me is amazing. That's
But
Carl.
the thing about Andy,
Just Shoot Me is the
McDowell-
TV show. I was asking
I know,
about
that's what I'm
movies,
saying.
but also
TV
I
show.
disagree.
But if you look at Andy McDowell's resume after she had
When
done Sex,
she
Lies,
was
and
dubbed
Videotape,
by Glenn Close and Greystoke.
right? And then you look, and it's like most of the stuff that she does is usually with Richard Curtis. Like the British love Andy McDowell. That's why she was in 4 Weddings and a Funeral and this and that. And it's like,
What?
Green Card.
I'm going to go Green Card, the only Peter Weir film I don't like. But here's
oh, you did not like Gerard Depardieu?
Yeah, I did not buy that for a second. He was already a little
Felt like a rapist from the get-go.
I feel like that movie ruined it for every other person who wanted to come in and get married and get a green card. Like,
here's my thing. Like, you know how there was the fan version of Phantom Menace where they took out Jar Jar Binks? I want to do a fan version where we replace Meg Ryan in the Andy McDowell role from 4 Weddings and a Funeral. Then I would love the film. Because I
to be
can't
honest,
I can't watch it because of Andy McDowell. She ruins the whole film for me.
See, Meg Ryan's like that for me. I'm just like,
I love Meg.
like Sleepless in Seattle. I saw once.
I don't
Everybody
care
said me
about
once.
any of it because it's romantic comedy bullshit. Here's my when bad films happen to good actors. I obviously went Canadian on my choices on some level. So I'm going with Bright Lights, Big City.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Starring Michael J. Fox, which is just one of the worst 80s movies. It's like Less Than Zero was already terrible. And then somebody said, no, we need to give Michael J. Fox his Less Than Zero. Why would you do that?
I have thoughts about
Why?
it. Crix, you go first. Guess goes
Lies. Less Than Zero was phenomenal. And it kind of predicted Robert Downey Jr.'s little tale, but he didn't die. And,
His acting is incredible, but everybody else's acting in that movie is deplorable. And the script of Less Than Zero is stupid beyond. It's such a just say no, like a hard R, just say no treatment of.
But I like how they portrayed rich kids in LA and how they go to Palm Springs to have their little parties. And
I grew up in Orange County and I was adjacent to some of this and it was pretty accurate.
Yeah, and plus Nicholas Pryor's in it. And how many times do you like when Nicholas Pryor was like practically in every fucking movie back then?
Plus, the Bengals redid the Paul Simon song. It was really good.
Yeah, Hazy Shade of Winter.
But how's then? Okay, so Less Than Zero is great.
No,
how is Bright Lights, Big City?
Okay.
Bright Lights, Big City.
Yeah, I here's, and this is unpopular opinion, I think, in this group. I never thought this. I thought this book was overrated. And then when they made it into a movie, I was like, well, obviously, if it's an overrated book, that kind of is. If you're going to do something as deep as Formica, I'm not going to go to the film going, I really am thinking Dostoevsky is going to happen at me, right?
And
yeah. I love Michael J. Fox. I do. I think he's one of the. I'm so special. He is so miscast in this film that, and I don't say that lightly because I think he can almost do anything, and he still can, even with all the physical and health issues that he's fighting. The Kings know how to write from him, The Good Wife and The Good Fight, and he's
Did
doing.
you see him in Rescue Me, where he was a?
Yes.
Yeah, he was so great in that.
I think this is the time where I like that Todd picked this because this is a weird thing. But as Gen Xers, I think we like Demi Moore and we like Michael J. We probably love both of them. Let's be honest, we love them both. But I would argue Todd's pick tonight, he is so fucking miscast in this. The way Demi Moore is so wrong for Hester Prynne, that we're talking about the same thing where you have a famous book, you've got the hot star of the moment, you have a studio willing to fund it for too much money, and then you expect people who care about Demi Moore to have cared about Nathaniel Hawthorne the way another generation later we thought, oh, well, let's get the girl from My So-Called Life and remake the Mod Squad, except no one who knows My So-Called Life ever saw the Mod Squad, and then everyone's confused that it didn't work, but the people who greenlit the Mod Squad, the movie, grew up with it and didn't understand, and it's a generational what?
I mean, but
What we're talking about, people.
I feel like everybody has their Cable Guy movie. You know,
Yes.
everybody shits on the Cable Guy, but
It's,
I'm
by
like,
the way,
that
it's a
is
better
a
film than you remember.
great
It's pretty
movie. And that's the same with Michael J. Fox. I think the problem with, and I think it was a misstep on his part too, and I think he probably realized it, but it's like, when Jessica Biel was like, I want to get away from the Seventh Heaven image, and she went and got Maxim, and she was practically naked, which was fine. But it's like the way that these guys want to break out of these roles sometimes is not smart. And so you look at Michael J. Fox, because like I knew him as Alex P. Keaton. I had a fucking huge crush on him. And then you got like Teen Wolf and all this other shit. And so when they're like, the way that the trailer marketed the movie, it looked like a fun little romp. And it wasn't. I mean, it was supposed to be fun, but the way that like the trailers do this all the time. The trailers, they mishandle what the movie's really about. And then so you go in thinking one thing, and then it's like, what the fuck am I watching? Funny trivia, the kid who plays Michael J. Fox's little brother in that movie when they're running down the street, that's fucking Charlie Schlaughter.
Oh my God, yeah. Young
Ferris, and the voice of young Ferris Bueller, 18 Again with George Burns, which is a shitty movie.
Another
the voice of the Honey Nut Cheerio. The Honey Nut Cheerio bee. He was a voice of for a long time, but this was just a misstep. It was a misstep everywhere, and I could see why Fox took the role is because I want to get out of these cutesy comedy roles. I want to do something with it.
No, I get it. He did Light of Day. He did a bunch of shit. He did Casualties of War, which is a way better movie than Light of Day.
I think that might have been John Leguizamo's first movie too.
Yes, and Casualties of War is one of the better.
Adam Baldwin was in it. Like
I think all the movies John Leguizamo, and this is a compliment, by the way. I think all the movies John Leguizamo has been in are the first movies that John Leguizamo has been in.
Yeah, the menu was such a great role for him.
I think he approaches all his roles like he's never acted before. And that's what I like about him.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to be insulting. I know that sounds weird.
I was just saying, like for the menu, his source material was working with Steven Seagal because he was such a fucking
yeah.
When he did the menu, he said, I based that character all off of Steven Seagal. And like I knew John Leguizamo back in the day from like his Broadway shows like Spick-O-Rama and all this stuff. Like one of my favorite jokes that he did in Spick-O-Rama is when he does one of his drag characters and she's in the laundromat like exercising, and then you see her with the kid and she's smoking, and then she bites a piece of or she smokes a cigarette, she takes a drag, bites a piece of chicken, and then blows it out, and then does it another time, and then she goes, smoked chicken. Like Leguizamo is so brilliant, and
yeah, he's
I'm
really
so
good.
glad.
But when I say he approaches everything like he's never acted, before,
like it's his first time.
The characters are always. There was a period actually when you brought up. I can't remember. It was the Seagal movie, which was Executive Decision. There was like in the 90s, there was a period where Leguizamo played this like nothing character.
Yeah.
You know, and then he busted out of that as an actor, not necessarily as a corporate entity, unfortunately. But like I'm a huge Romero zombie fan.
Yes.
So I can even sit through the straight to video one, but like the much maligned Land of the Dead.
That's the one where the zombies figured out how to use guns.
Yeah, and Leguizamo, he's so fucking good.
Yeah,
as the like in betweener of the bad guys and the good guys.
Yeah,
but that Romero film, I think, is the last great Romero zombie film.
Yeah.
And Hopper understands the assignment. He's playing George W. Bush or HW, like no, he's W. Bush.
He's just a Republican.
But but it was very present at the time with everything that was going on, and Hopper knew. And I feel like even the hat he has is a little bit like the hat he has in Chainsaw 2. Like I feel like like Hopper is like I get you, and I know what you want of me, and there was that, and then Leguizamo on his got Hopper in the tower and Leguizamo on the street, and I thought that kind of level playing ground with the zombie motif of what he was talking about. I think that's the last. I have a lot of fondness for that. I have to say that was, to Todd's point, the first time I looked at Leguizamo in a minute.
Was Tu Wong Fu?
And I thought it was great. No, I thought that was I hadn't seen him do anything great in a while.
That was a long time before.
It was a long time before, and I thought, because I do think he's an exceptional talent.
And that would like Tu Wong Fu. That's a good reference point,
because Fu's fabulous. Like
before
he had been doing
Tu
drag
Wong
queens
Fu,
forever.
He was just like low level heavy in most of the shit.
Well, because they
Well,
go
the
through
other
bad
reason-
stereotypes of
Tu
stupidity.
Wong Fu was great because if you piss Patrick Swayze off so much because he's a method actor and it's like everything has to be straight lines. If you piss him off so much with your improv that he takes a fucking swing at you, you've made it. And I wish more people would appreciate that movie because Wesley Snipes in drag, you'll never see it again.
No,
and he was amazing.
And
But,
I
the
remember
survival, but when you're talking about zombie movies, I think the one that I really liked because he made it right like a couple of years before he died was Survival of the Dead, and my boss was in it too. But because the whole concept was they were trying to biologically get zombies to eat animals instead of people, and I actually met him that night. He was so frail, and I was like, "We have the same birthday." I agree with you. Leguizamo's amazing.
He is amazing, but I also feel like that's a good pick, Todd. I like that you brought that up because I feel like that's also almost like a lost movie. Like those of us who lived through the era, we remember it, but there's a reason people who didn't, we don't go back to it. But if you are a fan of Michael J. Fox, and I love what you said, Chris, everybody has a cable guy movie. I think that's right. If you really love film and you really love actors and stars, you watch all the good and the bad. Like it doesn't, you know what I mean? And I think that's something that this show is also set up to celebrate. Look, Sigourney's made a handful of really terrible movies, but I see them anyway, and I appreciate moments that she finds in them. And
I think it's because she always plays the same fucking person.
No,
like in Paul, she was kind of the like.
I like Paul, but like,
Paul
send up Marion Williams.
Cabin in the Woods.
Cabin
in the Woods too. She was like this hard horror heavy. But my favorite movie of hers outside of Alien is Working Girl.
Oh, perfect.
Sure. I mean, I know what you're saying, Tracy, about Bright Lights because it's not an incompetent movie.
But it was a huge book that should have been a big movie. And
I never knew it was. I never read.
It's not incompetently done. It's just not well done. It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing that it exists.
It's gonna be like American Psycho, where like when I bought American Psycho at a bookstore,
I hate that book and I hate that movie.
But the thing was, that book was so controversial. I had to pay for it in advance because it wasn't even ordered. It wasn't even out yet, and so the bookstore's like, "You got to pay for this in advance because we won't keep this in our store." And I realized why. But when you go to Mary Herron's movie, half of that shit that's in the book, like the whole, like, you know, the whole chapter on Huey Lewis and the News, the whole chapter on Whitney Houston, you get like little shicks of that. So I think, you know, when people are trying to write this shit and they see what Bret Easton Ellis is up to, they're like, we got to dumb this down just a little bit because nobody's going to go for the jumper cables bursting the tits and like all the other stuff that you see. Like American Psycho almost made me throw up twice while I was reading it.
But I also love the idea that Christian Bale, and he said this famously, I think I was on a Letterman interview, was playing his perception of who Tom Cruise was, with the laughter and the crazy who has no soul, and that's what his Bateman character was about. But now they're remaking it, which is out of time times
Is that
20.
the one who's doing that? Glenn Powell? I know somebody famous.
No, it's Austin Butler, the Vanilla Elvis, and so so we're gonna have the Vanilla Elvis try to top Christian Bale. Maybe
hey, you know what? I'll say this. I don't want to like judge a guy before he does something
Well, he's done
because
and he's
I wouldn't have
Fight
expected Robert Pattinson to be a guy I look to for like independent
As
noir
Batman?
movies. And no, not as Batman. That's
Good Time was a great one.
but Good Time was great. I haven't seen Mickey 17, but maybe that's great. I'm just he's more interesting because he makes more interesting choices.
Yeah,
The
but people
Batman
like,
is not
and
one.
he had a weird situation too because he was Cedric Diggory and nobody could get past that. And then when he did Twilight, they couldn't get past him being Edward. There was like,
Yeah.
and that's a fan thing too. Is like, you know, it's like, okay, but you're always going to be this to me, and that's fair. That's fair. But
I wish I had his problems.
yeah, exactly. But I wanted to do a quick be bad, be best, or the whole situation.
Okay.
So my choice was, you had mentioned Toby Hooper, which made me laugh because my choice was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation, which starred 2 Oscar winners.
And who is that bad for?
Renee Zellweger.
Yeah.
But did they not deserve that? I don't think so. I think Matthew McConaughey and Renee
That's
Zellweger
what I'm saying.
absolutely deserve that movie.
Really? I don't think so. I
Yeah.
think it's like
I don't. That's the movie I would
thing
take.
was Superman Returns. Like
That's
Brandon
the
Routh
whole-
was put in an unfortunate. He was put.
Wait
in
a second. I don't know what Todd's saying right now because before anyone cared who Renee was or anyone cared who McConaughey was, there were 2 Texans who got cast.
Yeah.
In that. So that was before they were. I actually would argue if you watch McConaughey, I mean, he's already on fire and knows who he is. And Renee is completely credible in that role. I mean,
And
I
they're
don't,
both in Dazed and Confused too.
They're both
both in-
good. I here's what I think. I think that movie got unfairly buried. I think as far as a Texas Chainsaw sequel, it's as good as the best.
I agree.
And part of the reason it's as good as the best is Matthew McConaughey, for one, is fucking batshit crazy awesome in that movie.
Yeah.
And Renee Zellweger does what you have to do
He understands the
as
assignment.
As the
the
prom
young
queen.
woman in those movies.
But the thing about that movie was like, and that was just like totally passed over. Like
Well,
probably
it
one
was
of my
buried
favorite-
by the studio. The studio buried it.
Yeah, and Texas
Stop.
Chainsaw, there was a Texas Chain. Was it 2 or 3 where they were repurposing humans into chili and winning chili cook-offs? You know, because there's other movies like this, like where I'm like, you know, Parker Posey and Brandon Routh in Superman Returns, really great performances and a really unfortunate film.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that would also be that's the one I usually go to.
I know, I get what you're saying. I would say that Superman Returns is like kind of a piece of shit corporate movie.
But that's
Whereas Texas Chainsaw The Next Generation is just a piece of shit movie that failed on an independent level. And
Right.
it had some studio backing, but
But that's why Superman Returns, they totally fucked up because Brandon Routh was supposed to be the second coming of Christopher Reeve, and he was actually the first Superman I was okay with because he looked like Superman. If you looked in the comic books, he looked like Superman.
Sure.
He just didn't have the little spit curl. And everybody shit on Brandon Routh for that movie. I'm like, don't fucking blame him. He was doing his job. You know, just like Parker.
I mean,
Posey
yeah,
and
I don't
Texas
blame
Chainsaw.
him for being bland in a bland movie. That's what I'm saying. That's the difference between these two movies. If you look at the Texas Chainsaw The Next Generation, it's a terrible mess and doesn't make a lot of sense and is over the top, but it's not bland. It's not bland.
It's funny. I think when he gets all freaked out and he's running with his little braces on, I start giggling, and I don't know why.
I think Texas. I mean, again, I'm not going to die on this hill, but since Nora can win an Oscar, I'm going to fight for a little bit of the Zellweger McConaughey of it all. I actually think of all the Chainsaw Massacre sequels, that one's fun because of those performances early in their career. I think Toby Hooper, and I will die on this hill. I think there's images and moments that make me uncomfortable in Chainsaw 2, and most ladies will know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
However, the fact that he was like my answer to the cult hit where I got fucked out of all the money I should have made was to get a sequel. And then he did the poster where he had everybody in the family doing the Breakfast Club poster because he understood the assignment. He was doing a subversive comedy. There's sexualized violence that I don't sign off on, but I feel like that movie gets most
But
of.
seeing Leatherface laying out like that.
But Leatherface is like it. But again, there's a bit with oh God, and she's wonderful, the blonde in the film, who's the lead. My God, help me out. Great actress, and she's really thoughtful.
It's
and
Renee.
No.
From Texas Chainsaw 2.
From the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
No, part 2, the blonde who's the
Yeah,
final
the tall blonde who's the DJ.
really smart in Search of Darkness. She has smart things to say
Yeah, she's great.
about all of it. She's really cool about the way she encapsulates it. But I feel like Texas Chainsaw 2 was a really interesting rejoinder to the commercialization of horror, doing a subversive comedy, and it mostly really works. So I think part 2, and then I guess 4 is with Zellweger and McConaughey. The rest of them you never need to see. You don't. Not the originals. You know, we like.
Oh yeah, 2 was in the radio station, right? Like when he's like scraping his fucking metal plate and eating. Oh my God.
Carolyn Williams. That's her name.
Caroline
He's
Williams, yeah.
very good in this film.
Bill Moseley.
But I feel Bill Moseley is back and super creeper. But I think that's an interesting, that has something to say. It's not soulless. Anyway, I just think it's fun.
I mean,
Well,
you
it's
can
like
make arguments about all the Texas Chainsaw movies.
Right.
I will not defend 3. I won't do it.
I was saying earlier.
Leatherface is great. The
Leatherface is
prequel.
Right. But I was saying earlier to Tracy was that if you look at all these A-list celebrities, if you look at their IMDb's, they have at least one shitty movie, and it's usually a horror movie.
Yeah.
Like if every time I show friends the George Clooney Return of the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes,
Yeah.
or the one with Brad Pitt and George Clooney and Jill
And he's in
Schoen.
Grizzly too with Charlie Sheen.
By the way, He Knows You're Alone is Tom Hanks, right?
Yeah.
So they all have one movie that they would probably like to
Demi
hide, but
Moore.
because it's such a cult classic.
Demi
people
Moore
are
and
like, they love it.
Demi Moore and
What?
Parasite.
Parasite 3D. God damn it. She fucked Charles Band. Let's do the boost. Let's do the boost. We don't need to say any more about that except Demi Moore fucked Charles Band. The boost.
All right.
Tracy, what's your boost? A movie that you think people
Sad
should
to report that I have no films to boost because I didn't see any films this week to like. So what I'm going to boost, I'm doing TV. I don't think I don't know if it's going to be great or not because only 2 episodes have dropped, but it was subversive and interesting, and I can look at John Hamm all day long.
Your Friends and Neighbors.
Your Friends and Neighbors is kind of a sadistic, mean-spirited, eat the rich thing. I don't know where it's going to go. Only 2 episodes in, but he's interesting. He's not playing Don Draper, and it's dealing with the times we find ourselves in. And my interest is piqued, and he's doing some interesting things in this that I like seeing him do. I believe it's on Apple, and it's interesting. And I think
it's on Apple.
Yeah, it's worth seeing. The setup is basically, he's one of these guys we hate in Suits who has everything. He's married to Amanda Peet who like fucks his best friend, so they get a divorce. He's paying for the house. He's paying for it all. He's this cuckold guy, but he has a big job. And then Corbin Bernstein, like 30 years later than LA Law says, by the way, you're fired. He's like, what? In the pilot. And so then he's like, what do I do? And then it's like, maybe I robbed the rich assholes of which I was a couple weeks ago to try to make amends with this economy that doesn't quite work for me. And the opening of the pilot, he wakes up, and he turns over and there's a dead body and he's swimming in blood. And I'm like, I'm now in. So I want to see where it goes. I want to see where it goes.
You like when people wake up in a pool of blood.
I do. It's like Jane Fonda in like The Morning After. I just woke up with a dead guy. Best actress nominee in 1980.
I love that movie. I love The Morning
After. Funny
Julia,
story.
we miss Raul Julia.
The year that the first time I came to California, I was a child and we were going to Disneyland. And as we were leaving LAX and coming up the escalators or whatever, there were so this must have been right when Jane Fonda started because everybody's like, protest Jane Fonda. Jane Fonda is un-American. And I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah, because she was right about Vietnam.
Lady. Huh?
She was right about Vietnam.
I was like, that's a 9 to 5 movie. I was like, oh, okay. Who's boosting? Boost.
I have my boost. This is how we'll end the show. I will just give you a little backstory on the last time I watched this. I've seen this movie too many times to count, but the last time I watched it, I was with my brother and we were at my parents' house My dad was in hospice. And my brother and I had to take care of the dog and shit. So we were at the house. And he was like, what should we watch? I want to just watch something that's stupid and makes me feel happy. And I was like, well, what about Strange
Yay!
Fruit?
Oh,
This is another Canadian themed movie. And my brother and I had like seriously one of the greatest. I've had so many great moments with this movie throughout my life, but being with my brother and God damn it, my dad died right after we finished.
Oh.
But while we were watching it, it was so good. It was so funny, and it was so. It took us out. It took us out. It was an escape, and a movie that can do that.
I love it. Yeah.
That's my boost. That's my boost.
Plus, there's so many gross things in there where the dad's like, "Give me a bear," and they had just fed Hosehead and gave him the dog food, and then they poured it all in the. I was like, "Oh my god!"
No,
And I grew up with those guys on SCTV, so it was like me and my brother were like, we would just run around the house going, "Ooh, look, 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 look."
Oh yeah, we loved the sketches on SCTV, and then there was a movie.
Take off.
Yeah, Rick
I had a huge crush on
Moranis.
Rick
God damn it! Someone
coming
talk
back.
Moranis into coming back.
He's coming back to acting. He took the time off because he was like, I want to be a dad. I want to raise my kids. But now he's coming back.
Yeah.
I can't remember why.
Well, because his wife died. That's why.
That's right. And but I just Strange Brew is one of those movies that I'll always watch. The one movie that I would boost, which is it's probably going to sound strange, Y2K.
Oh, the Kyle Mooney movie.
Kyle Mooney,
I watched that. I didn't care for it. I got to be honest.
But there's like A24 in me. Like I'm a founding member of A24, which is their fucking fan club. And there's been movies that I'm just like, admittedly, like because I'm a founding member, I get free tickets opening weekend to every movie. And there were some movies that were just like, I'm like, oh my God. Because Midsummer obviously is my favorite movie from A24. But
your favorite out of all of them?
Out of all of them.
Wow.
Midsummer,
The director's cut.
Hereditary?
But to be fair, the director's cut of Midsummer.
I don't like Midsummer at all.
Summer Solstice last year, Midsummer came. A24 had that summer where they put everything out in IMAX form, and like the Oasis documentary, which I missed, but Midsummer. So we went and saw it at the Chinese theater, and it was like they said when the Swedish people saw it and they laughed through the whole thing. That's exactly what happened here, because you had people who had never seen the movie. But then like Civil War came out, and I was like, yeah. And then I saw the TV Glow, pissed me off so bad. I was just like, what is this going? Because everybody's trying to be James Joyce these days. Everybody's trying to do these open-ended movies. And I'm just like, it's like, I get it if you're thinking about a sequel. We're not going to see a sequel to I See the TV Glow. But the thing about Y2K that I liked was it was just took from so many elements. Like I describe it as the Breakfast Club meets Stranger Things. And there was one more. But like, I just like Kyle Mooney, like Brigsby Bear. I thought was really interesting.
I like Kyle Mooney a lot. A Y2K. I didn't hate it. I was fine with it, but ultimately, it didn't make me laugh that hard, and that was my problem with it.
See, for me, I don't need to laugh
weren't
hard.
very good.
Yeah, I just need to kind of a little.
If I'm watching something that dumb, and Y2K is that dumb. If it's that dumb and it has to have as many jokes, at least as a Dumb and Dumber or a Farrelly Brothers movie or
that's the other thing it reminded me of was that. But there's also
didn't quite land on that level.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because you either love it or hate it. Kyle Mooney has this show on.
It's
Netflix.
worth watching. I mean, there's jokes, and Kyle Mooney's cameo within his own movie is one of the funnier moments, and I think that is indicative of the problem.
Yeah, and Kyle Mooney has a show on Netflix. It's like Saturday morning cartoon something where he plays twin brothers. If you haven't seen it, it's a TV series, But it's really interesting. And there's the other boost that I would do. I know 2 boosts is the behind the scenes of the Stranger Things show that opened in the West End.
Oh yeah.
And it's now on Broadway. A friend of mine just went and saw it last week, and he's like, it's fucking amazing.
Yeah, it's so funny because I just went on my honeymoon to London, and we walked past that theater, and I was like, and it was like always, I was like, what is this? And it was like this huge like thing in London. It was Covent Garden
Yep.
in Prime, and I was like, God, if I was there longer.
Yeah, I don't know how the Broadway
I
show.
was to go see Sigornia's Prospero and the Tempest because, you know, why wouldn't you? But she was awesome, by the way.
But yeah, I
Yeah.
wonder what the translation is from the West End Theater to where they are now, which is in Broadway. Because the West End Theater, the theater that they were in was a whole different animal
And
than
why
what we have.
in London for this American show? That's interesting too. You know,
Yeah, I mean, it was it gives you
Usually
the whole
are-
background.
here in travel, but
Yeah, behind the curtain, Stranger Things, The First Shadow, and the people that are involved in it. I was just like, holy fuck!
I'm not prepared to see the next and final Stranger Things.
They better hurry up, or I'm gonna.
Because those
bow
kids
out.
are all like apparently like 30 now. So I'm like, what's happening? Like, it's
Yeah,
like
I think
Noah
they've
Schnapp-
somehow gotten older than me at this
Well, Noah
point.
Schnapp is Noah Schnapp is you know, he's been doing some questionable things in between these seasons, and so
Oh.
they're like, you better hurry up before he fucking gets
Is it
completely
like-
canceled.
does he know Diddy?
No, but he
Yeah.
was saying, like Palestine and all that shit, and he said some
Oh,
questionable
he's
things on
an
his Instagram.
anti-Semite because he hates Israel.
Something like that. But he's also done a couple of other things that have been a little, you know. But it's when shows take so much fucking time.
Yeah, too much
each
time.
season, I
These-
get bored.
I'm not agreeing with the concept that if you hate Israel, you're also an anti-Semite. I was just saying that's what
No, that's
the
what people have
zeitgeist-
said, you know.
Well-
But it's also like they're going after Quinta Brunson because she's like, I don't know any white people, and I'm like, yo, her ex-husband is white and he's an asshole. She's allowed.
Go after Gal Gadot because she's actually a
let's
fucking
not-
goddamn fascist. Okay, let's
Well,
stop.
no,
let's
Stop.
not.
but I
This is
love
not
I
the
love
show.
going back to these movies that you're like, holy cow, there's so and so and so. Like Dazed and Confused is another one. I'm like, well, if you like Matthew
everybody's
McConaughey, Ben Affleck,
Yeah.
Rory Cochrane, like all these motherfuckers, they're all in that. And I was like, you know, Chandler's weird roommate from Friends,
That's right.
he's in Dazed and Confused.
Well, I would say there's a movie, the company I'm currently working at, Amasia, they did this little movie right when I came in. It went to Sundance and then no one saw it. But when I look at the cast, I'm not so sure it's not one of the greatest casts either, where it's like you've got Walton Goggins, you have Olivia Colman, you have Caitlin Dever, you have Thomas Mann.
Wait, what movie was this?
It's called Them That Follow. And Alice Engler, who's Jane Campion's daughter, who's now a director in her own right. And it's this very contained snake preacher, Appalachia sort of thriller, but not really, which is the problem because people want things to be pigeonholed, but it's more interesting than that. And it's one of the all-time great casts. And in fact, Olivia Colman, when we did the movie, we had to tap to Harley her. She wasn't SAG yet because she'd only done, you know, so it was whatever. It was a little tiny indie movie we did in Youngstown, Ohio. But that cast is crazy. You could not afford that
And
cast.
it's not coming out.
It came out and no one cared like 6 years ago.
It's like Blink and You Miss It
Oh.
short film.
Yeah,
Is it on streaming? Can I stream it?
it should be. Yeah, I think so. I don't know where we are anymore.
All
but-
right.
Do you
I have
remember
to go. You
Follow.
guys, I have to go and watch Them That Follow.
Hey,
Yay!
guys, what was your first Walton Goggins experience? Because mine was House of a Thousand Corpses, where
Oh,
he
yes.
played the deputy.
I definitely remember him from that, but I think it was Django where I was like, oh, now he's grown up.
Django.
Not Django. Django.
Oh, Django. Damn you to Django.
Yeah, that was where I was like, finally, he has a role where he's going to be
Django and Change. Yeah.
Yeah. But
seen
y'all
and
called him to Django.
spotlighted in a way that I felt like he never had been.
You know what?
I
the thing where
had
he's playing with his balls. I shouldn't have been turned on by that, but I was when he's like,
Yeah.
I'm just like,
I'll be honest. I was aware of him, and I thought he was good. But the first
good.
time
That's
he
all
like,
Tubi, that's how you know how well it worked. Yeah.
yeah, the first time I
Yep.
really registered him and his name because there's character actors who are that guys for a long time,
Yeah.
and then you finally go, oh, I know his name. It was Justified. That was when I
Yes.
knew
Yeah. Boyd
Walton
Crowder.
Goggins. Yeah,
Fine.
he's so good in that.
And then he did Vice Principals, which I was like, bless you, because then we got this like funny, weird version of the effeminate straight guy, like the Dana Carvey character in SNL. And
Mhm.
also Venus from Sons of Anarchy is
And I
always one that I push
share
at.
very quickly because I know Todd has to go and eat. I have a personal Walton Goggins story. It'll take 20 seconds. So I don't care about hair, makeup, clothing. In fact, I hate all of that shit. But so recently got married, and I was like, I don't need to be in a dress because that just wouldn't work. So I was like, I got to get a tux and do that. And so I found a tux, and then I needed to get it fitted. And I went to this guy who is known as the thanks to some people who gave me some inside track. Like, no, dude, he's in Los Feliz. He's like the thing to the stars, but it's like this dry cleaning place, and it won't look weird. It'll look weird to you, but you should go. And Oprah goes. I'm like, I don't need to go where Oprah goes. I can't afford where Oprah goes. And they're, no, it's not like that. His name is Hamlet, and you walk in.
Is he a little Mexican dude?
No, he's like this. I don't
Okay.
know. He's like this tall, like white, kind of interesting.
Okay.
He looks like a little bit like Moby, if I'm being honest. But like he came out, and I was like, "Hi, I've heard great things about you." I've like 5 people. Anyway, so I said, "Here's my tux, and get a bit fit for a wedding." He's like, "Okay, I'll do the thing." So he took the measurements. It was like Sarah Jessica Parker in LA Story. Boop, boop, boop. I was like, "Wow, okay." And so I was like, "Is that all you need from me?" He's like, "Yeah." And so I came back. And so it's literally a dry cleaner store. And then there's like this little, it looks like a curtain ring from the 50s that you go in and you change. And so there's no room. And then you have to step out to see. So, but when you step out, there's one chair that's right there with someone who's waiting to go into the one non-dressing room that you have. So I'm in like my tux, and the thing is, for someone trying it on, and Hamlet's coming out, and I walk out, and Walton Goggins is like right here. And I have my little shoes on to make sure that the pants were the right length for my loafers and all that. And Walton Goggins goes, "Wow, man." He's like, "That's a beautiful suit. You look amazing. Did he do this suit? Hamlet, did you do this suit?" I was like, I'm uncomfortable in clothing to begin with, and now I've got Walton Goggins going, "Dude, that's
And that deep, rich
Oh.
whiskey voice,
he's
man.
like, you look great." I was like, and so I wanted to be cool, like, I don't know who you are, so I pretended to be like, "Yeah," and I'm like, why is he talking to me? And then so now I got Walton Goggins saying, "Your tux looks great," and then Hamlet, which always ends in tragedy, but like here, okay, he comes over, and I'm like, this is so I was texting my fiance at the time, and I was like, this only happens in Los Angeles. So I go, I don't know. I think it works, but Walton Goggins likes it. And she's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" I'm like, I don't know, man. Like I walked out, Walton was there.
Walton, what?
Yeah. So true story.
But
That's my Walton Goggins
The
story.
thing
That's
about
dope.
Walton Goggins, and this is the last thing I'll say, is when your hairline starts here, and there are still multitudes of men and women that want to bone you, you've made it. Like for real. Like I just see, like I was watching The White Lotus, and I was like, oh my God, that hairline is just like, and I'm like, I'd still do him.
He's super sexy and he's cool.
No, I'm a bit player, and I get what you're saying. Like I have like at least 3 or 4 men and women who might want to bone me, and I'm feeling pretty good about it.
My favorite part of Arrested Development was seeing you. I think I texted you the first time I saw it. I was like, hey.
I
you
tested
on
for
this?
that fucking show, and they rejected me. Along with French Stewart. Me and French Stewart both got rejected.
I know French Stewart. He's a lovely human.
French Stewart is a great guy, but that's a whole other show. I'm going to wrap this up.
We have to wrap it up and come back more frequently.
Yes, of course. Sorry.
Yes, Chris. Thank you very much for doing the show.
I
Is
love
there
all
anything you want
with
to plug before we bail? Do you guys need to
Um,
plug? I mean, Tracy, you have a fucking movie coming out.
I'm
I
just
don't give
gonna
a fuck about your
Snake
plugging.
Snake Plissken. Watch
Plug-in
Escape
resistance.
from New York and LA because they're both they also transcend. Escape from LA is better than you remember post-Trump also.
But what about
I
your
agree.
movie? I want to see your movie.
We are about ready to wrap up World Breaker. Finally, we're delivering in a couple weeks, but we're going to start to slowly roll it out to distributors to watch. Mila Jovovich, Luke Evans, Billy Bouvier, who, if you saw A Small Light, she played Anne Frank. She's the star of tomorrow. I swear to God, we got so lucky. This role, it's very women and female empowerment. She's the young Ripley of the movie. She's Luke Evans' daughter. She's turned 19 on our movie. She plays 16 here. She's definitely gonna be the female lead in Amazon's remaking, or not remaking, but doing a series on Tony Scott's Man on Fire. She's in the leading role, so this is gonna launch her. She is, y'all. She's the real deal. This girl, young woman, like, oh my God, she was amazing. And we put her through the ringer. That was very physical. She's doing sword work, and like she's really amazing, and she loves old movies. And we had some good conversations. Like, you need to go into Barbara Stanwyck's thing, and she's like on it. Like, this is a professional to watch out for. Brad Anderson, Session 9, The Machinist directing, gorgeous film. We just have to hope in this world where a lot of people aren't buying theatrical, that we'll be forgiven for being smart. It really should be the next Quiet Place. We'll see. So we're starting to screen it. I will keep everyone abreast of any updates we have, but I'm really proud of the film. It's awesome. And so I hope
I cannot wait to see it.
Yeah, I want to go see it too.
I'm very proud.
I support my friends.
Thank you.
I support my friends too, but also I'm excited to see it because of all you've told me about it. This is a movie that's up my alley.
Yeah.
If I could plug anything, it's just you guys look. Root canals are not cheap.
Oh.
They're painful and expensive. So if you could hire me to be in your show, that'd be great. All right,
and you can find me pretty soon on Idle Hands blog. I'm going back to reviewing TV and movies.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Yeah, I was semi-retired for a while. Like, I was just like, I don't want to write about anything. I just want to sit in my depression and my stench.
Can you put that in the comments so when the replay comes up, people can see it?
But yeah, the thing you're saying about your girl, that's how I feel about Mikey Madison, because so many people are like, all of a sudden she's this new thing. I was like, bro, she was in fucking Pamela Adlon's TV show on FX, Better Things, and she had been in the Scream one, which I thought was unfortunate because I knew right away she was one of the bad people, because she looked like one of the goth. She looked like a goth chick. I'm like, she's one of the killers right away. I just clocked her. But yeah, Mikey Madison is just, and she's one of those chicks too, where she does all these brassy movies, and then, hi, I'm Mikey Madison, and she's so soft spoken, and I love people like that. But yes, Idle Hands blog.
Idle Hands blog, do the thing. Everybody who's watching, thank you. I want to point out, because Todd and I have been doing this for like forever and a day. Thank you for all the people who are watching. You guys have grown. Usually we lose people because we go too long because we get enthusiastic about things. The fact that you stayed in and watched, thank you so much. Thank you, Crix, for bringing this movie and talking about it. Everybody who's listening at home, Canadian Bacon, man, if you're paying attention to the news even in a half-assed way, it's going to resonate for you. We're going to be back next Wednesday. Watch the page for the updates, and we'll go from there. Thank you, everybody.
Peace out, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.